Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 20th, 2022 Mason City Council meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask for us to have the roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Chance.
Here.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Present.
Councilmember Hackey.
Here.
Councilmember Grossman.
Here.
Councilmember Stricula.
Here.
Mayor Spaeth.
Here. I would like for everyone now to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are to item 4, and I need a motion to approve the minutes from the August 8th council meeting, the August 2022 special council meeting, and the September 6th special council meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed?
Yes, I think on the 6th, where we talked as far as the new committees, I think I voted present and not aye.
Oh, just, can we just, do we need another motion, or can we just change it?
No, we can just change it.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're to item 5, which is the city manager's report. Eric?
Thank you, Mayor. Have several items here, but wanted to start with one fun item. Each year around this time, we get to recognize some of the photography talent in the city as part of our annual calendar. So I'd like to ask Jennifer Haft, Assistant City Manager, to help guide that recognition.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that our calendar winners, we do publish them in our annual calendar that was released at the Heritage Festival. There are some in the back of the room to those that are interested. So all the winners this evening had to submit a photograph that was taken. The only requirement is that it is taken inside the city of Mason. Inside the calendar, we also have a lot of our local businesses that do help. We promote our businesses in this, and that helps offset the cost of this calendar. So other than that, it's free to enter into. I'm going to announce some of the winners tonight, and I think we have some here in our audience. Some of the prizes that they do get is a framed copy of their photo, along with a calendar and a Yifty gift card. I think Kurt's going to help me with this. So our cover winner is Latika Lavini, and I don't think Latiki's here today. Let me have one of these. The title of it is Flowers Don't Tell, They Show. January's winner, sorry about that, is William Harper. The title of it is Robin Bathing During a Light Show. And if we have any winners in the audience with us tonight, if you would come forward, we're going to present you with your gift. And then if you would just step off to the side, once all the winners are announced, we're going to get a group photo of all of them. Congratulations. February's winner is Sam Cooper, Snowy Gazebo. Out a little further. March's winner is William Harper, Bullfrog Resting in a Muddy Lake. April's winner is Sonia Ramini, A Gentle Kiss. I don't think she's here with us this evening. May's winner is Anshu Prabhini, Blaze of Color. I think you've won several years. Yeah. June's winner is Lindsay Sedano, Here It Comes. I recognize some of these names. I think a lot of them are repeat winners from previous years. July's winner is Michelle Noor, Escape to Mason. August winner is Michelle Noor, Misty Morning. September winner is Lindsay Archibald, Solemn Sunflower. October's winner is Vicki Wiseman, Lovely Mason, Ohio. November's winner is Tammy Pierce, Autumn Beauty. And December winner is our own Chief Ron Farrell, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. So thank you for all you for participating, and I did announce, or maybe I missed it, your additional gift is a Yifty gift card, and it should have been sent to your emails today, and if you haven't received one, just let us know. But if you would step up front here, we'd love to get a picture with you and all of council.
I'd like for all of us to give him a big round of applause. Some gorgeous pictures.
There are calendars in the back of the room. If you want to take one on your way out, you're welcome to.
I have a few other items, Mayor. September is also known as National Self-Improvement Month, and in keeping with that theme, the city's September Small Business Initiative is focused on promoting Mason businesses that market improving your lifestyle. So whether it's a new fitness routine, decluttering your surroundings, improving your health, we are promoting special offers to businesses that fit within that profile during this month via the city's website and through social media, our e-newsletters, encouraging residents to look for those type of offers to patronize those businesses. And then a bit of a preview, October is International Coffee Month. And we do have some small businesses that focus on providing coffee. And we will be promoting those, especially via the community center, both various coffee businesses within the city, as well as flowers. And so florists that are in the community be looking for special offers, especially community center members, to encourage patronizing those businesses that help our local community. And speaking of community center, October 6th, 7th, and 8th, and these have proven increasingly popular at the community center, are Member Appreciation Days. And on those days, there are prize drawings, special savings for premier members at Symbiosis. And on Saturday, October 8th, it culminates with a fall fun event between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., where you're encouraged to wear a Halloween costume and win a free month of membership at the community center. Also coming up in October, on October 11th, the city has partnered with the Mason Historical Society. They hold their annual cemetery walk on Tuesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. That has grown in popularity right across the street here, where utilizing the cemetery and hearing voices from Mason's past are featured. Tickets are available through the Historical Society Museum. Have 2 liquor permits for council action. One is for Basal LLC, doing business as Beerhead Bar and Eatery. It's a D1, D2, D3 transfer of ownership, which is beer only for on-premises consumption and in sealed containers for carryout until 1 a.m. Wine and certain prepackaged mixed drinks for on-premises consumption in sealed containers for carryout until 1 a.m. And spirituous liquor for on-premises consumption only until 1 a.m. Council can request a hearing or not request a hearing and do that via motion.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion not to have a hearing.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second liquor permit is also for Basal LLC, doing business as Beerhead Bar and Eatery. These are new liquor permits. A D3A, which is extension of issued permit privileges until 2:30 a.m. And a D6, excuse me, there's a lot of Ds. Sale of intoxicating liquor on Sunday between the hours of 1 p.m. and midnight. And again, council can request a hearing or not via motion.
Okay, does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion again not to have a hearing.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Thanks.
One other item, Mayor, and then would like to ask council's favor. One thing I did want to draw some attention to, there is considerable information in your packet that took almost as much effort, I think, to put together as it was the projects it conveys, but an update on various projects throughout the city. And there are a number of those. I'm sure residents, depending on where you live, are aware of several of those, but it ranges, and I don't want to go through the entire list. It is exhaustive, but everything from 741, which has been a series of projects over a series of years, irrigation of the golf course, the landscaping at I-71 and Western Row, which is now beginning to fully take shape, the street maintenance program, which will be wrapping up this month. There are water main replacements, storm sewer projects. There are a number of projects throughout the city, including and I hesitate to say it, except it's now done, 42 and Tylersville, the railroad improvement crossing. There are just a huge number of projects that I think we're aware of only when they're inconvenient to us, but there is an awful lot of time that goes into getting those prepped, getting them financed, and then the time spent primarily through engineering and building on inspecting those and bringing those to fruition. Not all of those are projects that the city is responsible for, but that we monitor. It may be Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. There are projects outside the city, the Kings Avenue Bridge, which includes a water line that the city uses for the golf course that requires our input. So a lot of time, a lot of technical effort that goes into those. So one, I wanted to give some credit and just some acknowledgement to the amount of work that, especially at this time of year when projects have, gone into the school year, they're wrapping up with the construction season. That's the good news. And then I want Kurt maybe to go into a little more detail on one of those projects that I think there's good news balanced with the difficulty, illustrates the difficulty of moving some of these projects forward, and that is the roundabouts on 42.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. The project was, that project is delayed from where we thought we would be by this time. We were hoping to have both of those roundabouts open by the end of the year. There's actually 8 utilities in that area. It's kind of like 2 projects in one where there's 2 intersections, and 42 is the main route for our 911 service, all the phone service, internet service to Mesa from the hub, which is in Lebanon, for several of those utility companies. So there's aerial, there's underground, there's electric, gas, there's gas services, water main, force mains, a really tight construction site. So what happened is the utilities have not gotten out of the way as quickly as we had hoped. In fact, by the end of the week, another phone company should be done, and then we're awaiting the last phone company to do some splicing, which we expect to take another month. We're hoping that our contractor, who actually had to pull off the site because of utilities in the way, there's overhead utilities and poles in the way, that we're hoping to have them back on site October 24th to begin working, and we'll try to put traffic over onto the permanent pavement on the east side of US 42 by the Winter. Right now, we're driving on temporary pavement, and we've gotten a lot of complaints from the trenches that the utility companies have left on our construction site. Our contractors tried to patch some of those. But really, we're focused on trying to get it to a safe situation by the end of the year. And if everything goes well, like I said, towards the end of October, our contractor will be back on that. The good part about it, if there is any that Eric talked about, you guys are waiting for the good. Nothing's good yet. Synesis got that project, and they also got both of the 741 projects. So we talked with them in an effort to try to keep those crews in Mason. They put their crews, so there's actually 5 crews that are working on the 2 741 projects. That's putting those a little bit ahead of schedule, and we should have surface pavement on 741 by the end of the year. So actually by Friday, if I hate to say it, so by next Friday, not this Friday, I'll add a week for Eric, we should be operating that new roundabout at the Mason R&D Road as a roundabout. We'll shift traffic around that, and so that'll be a new addition to us on 741. And so that's a piece of good news, is that the crews did stay in Mason at least and are continuing to work. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them on that.
Last item, Mayor, I'd like to ask council to, in order to accommodate one of our business partners, one long-standing business partners, the last business item on our agenda is a community reinvestment area for CM Paula. I'd like you to ask you to consider moving that up to now on the agenda so we can help accommodate that.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Yes. Anyone opposed? Thanks.
I'd like to introduce Economic Development Director Michelle Blair to talk a little bit about this opportunity.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be in front of you tonight, especially with an economic development project. Nothing new, but always very exciting. So this evening, CM Paula Remtech, hopefully it's okay that I say it that way, George, is with us, and we have a guest, George White. George is the CEO of CM Paula since 2005, so he's no stranger to the city of Mason. And tonight, he's going to come up and he's going to tell council a little bit of history about the company and some exciting things that are happening. And I'm going to give you just a brief overview of why this is a really important consideration for us as we all do economic development here over the years. And a few key things about CM Paula is when they moved to the city of Mason, after a long history in business, they moved here in 1995. One of those early established companies that were a family company, middle market, and at that time, which we still hold true today, is we really want a company to come here and be able to thrive and continue their growth over the years, buy enough property to at least double their footprint here in Mason so that we can continue that trend and establish a long-time relationship. And CM Paula did just that, and today they'll be looking at increasing their footprint by 60%. They are a holding company, and they oversee a number of different business functions from their original CM Paula history. And George is going to tell us a little bit more about that. But with the project that we're looking at today, this will expand the building footprint, an opportunity for the city of Mason to attract $3.6 million in new investment over the next 5 years, create a little more than 20 jobs in a targeted industry sector, which is robotics, automation, and some complementary positions with the global corporate headquarters of CM Paula here. And then we'll be looking at offering community reinvestment area tax abatement to facilitate that, as well as some future possibilities to help them with some energy efficiency through a pay structure, which the City of Mason does not have at this point, but will facilitate some language and a motion, if council is agreeable, so that we could entertain that in the future. So I'm going to pause for a minute, ask George to come up, introduce himself, tell us a little bit about the company and the project. I'll come back up, walk you through the attached tax analysis that you have in your packet, some of the numbers, and make a recommendation that's been recommended by Economic Development Committee on this project. So, George?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. CM Paula is a second-generation family-owned holding company headquartered here in Mason. Founded in 1958 by Charles McCullough as a small greeting card supplier, the company evolved into a leading developer and marketer of greeting cards, stationery, and novelty products, supplying large and small retailers throughout the United States and around the world, with products ranging from mood rings, which you may remember, to plaques, to something called whatchamacallits, which were these really small statues. The company moved several times, eventually ending up on High-Tech Court in Mason in the mid-90s, when Charles wisely purchased that piece of property, which, as Michelle indicated, was twice as large as we needed at the time. And we had our current building constructed then. Our building opened in 1996 and has served the company very well since that time. Shortly after CM Paula moved into this building, the market and the business encountered some massive disruptions, including retailer consolidations and foreign sourcing, if you can remember back to that time, both of which were major threats to the company's core business. McCullough and his management team developed a new business model and completed a strategic transition, jettisoning completely its previous business as a supplier of consumer products to become a management company that would buy, hold, and grow a diversified portfolio of firms, including our 4 current operating companies that include Up With Paper, which was purchased in 2005. That's the world's leading manufacturer of pop-up greeting cards, which it supplies to retailers of all sizes around the world, including several here in Mason. Geo Central was acquired in 2008. They showcase nature's beauty and bounty through a unique, class-leading product line featuring one-of-a-kind stones, holistic crystal sets, gifts, distinctive home decor, jewelry, and children's enrichment items. Third is Art Metals Group, which was acquired in 2012. That is our one operating division that is not here in Mason. They're located actually over in Fairfield. They provide unique and high-quality engineered metal stamping and coining manufacturing. And then finally, Remtech Automation, which was acquired in 2014, which develops and supplies cost-effective robotic systems and integrated automation to perform needed work for a wide variety of customers around an array of industries. I should note that the vast majority of these automated systems, including palletizing and case packing systems, utilize robots from Fanuc, which has a support office here in Mason. Each of these 4 businesses has its own management team, reporting to CM Paula management in Mason and leveraging our finance team and other shared functions. All 3 of our Mason-based companies have grown tremendously since the depth of the pandemic in 2020. The space needed to meet customer demand for the production of Remtech's automated systems, as well as to store, process, and ship the consumer products from GeoCentral and Up With Paper, is now simply more than we have. To alleviate that problem, we've looked at leasing space nearby and further afield as well. We looked also at leveraging the additional space we now have in our recently enlarged building at ART over in Fairfield. But certainly the most cost-effective and cost-efficient solution is to expand our building here to maximize the use of our unutilized lot on High-Tech Court, particularly if we can leverage the tax abatement incentives being considered tonight. We've engaged Keysland Development Services to optimize that space, and our proposal is to add an additional 35,600 square feet of new workspace for Remtech to our existing building at a cost of $3.6 million. We'll move all production for that division into that new space, which will then also provide additional warehouse space for Up With Paper and GeoCentral. If we can move forward with that project this month, we should be able to move into a new space in March, enabling us to deliver existing contracts and continue to grow all 3 companies, adding an estimated 20-plus new, well-paying positions in the next 5 years. Finally, I'm pleased to share that part of our plan is to fill the roof of our new building with an array of solar panels that will generate enough electricity to not only power the new building, but to power our entire operation here in Mason. This is not only incredibly exciting and important to our management team, it is also consistent with CM Paula's commitment to reduce excess materials and energy used in our operation. Our dedication to being best in class means we not only provide the best products and services, we also operate more reliably and efficiently to support a more sustainable future. We will be very proud to serve as a leader in the Mason community focused on increasing our sustainability while also generating strong business growth. We appreciate the Council's favorable consideration of the Economic Development Committee's expansion incentive for this project, and we look forward to welcoming you to a newly expanded company headquarters in High-Tech Court this spring. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but thank you very much.
Council have any questions? I think over the pandemic, we learned how important a diverse business base is here, and certainly we don't always get to hear about the unique businesses that are in Mason's 27 business parks, and so it's great to be able to renew what goes on as far as CM Paula's holding company strategy and be a part of this. As George mentioned, You do have in your packet a tax analysis, and since we haven't done one of these in a while, it might be helpful, as with the investment of $3.6 million in real estate, when we use the tax abatement program, this will save the company a little over $150,000 over a 7-year term. It also contributes very nicely back into the Mason City school system, generating a combined community at-large benefit of close to $1 million during the term of that abatement. And as you mentioned, a payroll of about $1.6 million that would be added to the city of Mason. Okay. Well, if everyone's
Does
not...
anyone have any questions for Michelle? Okay.
All right, well, then I will make it a motion that has been recommended by the Economic Development Committee, and that motion is to grant CM Paula Remtech an abatement under the Community Reinvestment Area Program of 100% of real property improvements for 7 years on the value of the new building expansion as authorized by the State of Ohio CRA program and contingent upon the company making an annual compensation payment to the Mason City Schools for the term of the abatement period, and an additional motion to activate a City of Mason PACE energy incentive made available by the State of Ohio between CM Paula and the City of Mason for this project at such time it becomes available during the construction period is also recommended.
Okay, would anyone like to make that motion?
I don't have to repeat it, do I? I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, we need a roll call, I think.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spade?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is the Mesa Mile update with the MAID CDC. And I think, Sydney, if you would come to the podium, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and staff. My name is Sydney Hayes. I'm the project manager for the MAID CDC, and I'm here this evening to provide an update on the Downtown Mesa Mile project. The Mesa Mile project is a community-led, market-driven project. We will honor our history while building into the future a fresh, healthy, and sustainable place for people to live, work, and play. The Mesa Mile project has a core team of volunteers that consist of David Charpentier, Casey Richards, Annie Droege, and Chris Heim. Administrative staff includes myself and Sherry Taylor. Since June, we have had 15 activator volunteers collect data at 141 addresses along West Main, East Main, and Reading Road. In addition to counting parking spaces, determining the type of businesses, and whether it's a 1- or 2-story building, activator volunteers also spoke with business owners, managers, and property owners to help spread awareness about the project. Some of the key takeaways from those conversations were that people are excited to see revitalization in downtown, and current pain points include parking, pedestrian safety, and traffic flow. Starting in mid-August and continuing into September, activator volunteers were assigned to take pictures of businesses and sidewalks along West Main, East Main, and Reading Road. So far, we have received over 350 pictures. Amongst those 17 activator volunteers, 11 of those also collected data. Those 11 activators who have taken part in both data collection and picture taking have since adopted those businesses as their own to keep them informed, involved, and a continuous part of the Downtown Mesa Mile project. Thank you to everyone who has helped us complete tasks so far. Your efforts and time don't go unrecognized, and we couldn't do all of this without you. In addition to all of the good work being conducted by our Mesa Mile activator team and the core team, MAID CDC's Board of Directors has been working diligently to identify potential partners to support advancement of the grant funding agreement that was executed between the City of Mason and MAID CDC last month. A meeting is scheduled for tomorrow between MAID CDC leadership and City of Mason leadership to provide overall progress updates on the grant, as well as the RFP process as part of our commitment to our partnership. We're eager to begin the next step in our work of Phase 2 to organize, envision, and assess advancements for the Mesa Mile. We want to thank Mason City Council for partnering with us to make all of this happen. We are eager and excited to continue to build on all of the good work that's been done over the years and move at the speed of trust. Should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or any of the people I mentioned at the beginning, or visit our website, madecdc.org/downtown Mesa Mile. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Sydney. We appreciate it. Okay, we're to item number 7, recognition of visitors. I believe we had a sign-up sheet tonight for the recognition of visitors. I want to remind everybody our council rules allow for 5 minutes per person. Unless a council member wants to make a motion to change the 5-minute limit. I want to remind everybody there's also a recognition of visitors at the end of the meeting. If there's something in addition that you want to say, you can do that at the end of the meeting if the 5 minutes is not enough time for you. We did do a sign-up sheet today because we weren't for sure we'd have a lot of people, so I'm going to ask Jennifer to call people out, and we are going to give the City of Mason residents priority first to speak, but I think we're going to have ample time to let everybody speak who's here. So, Jennifer, if you would.
I'm going to name the first 3 on the list, and if you want to just make your way toward the podium. Rosemary Haddad. And as you approach the podium, if you would state your name and address for council.
Yeah, I forgot to say that. I'm sorry. Please state your name and your full address, please.
Rosemary Haddad. I live with my husband, Jim Osmond, at 5900 Fairway Drive. We are delighted to have such a lovely home sitting on the number 11 hole of the golf course, used to be 2 West. I actually want to, I won't take 5 minutes, address changes coming up on the golf course, one of which is to reclaim property. So up until now, and at this point, out-of-bound markers are somewhere between 10 and 20 feet inside golf course property. Homeowners have maintained the part of the golf course that is outside the out-of-bounds markers, and the golf course takes care of the rest. We've become aware that there's an attempt or a project to reclaim that property. We know it's the city's. In doing this, it seems that the out-of-bound markers are going to be moved to the property line. Is anybody here a golfer? Thank you. You know that the most frequent bad hit is a slice. So if you're a right-hand golfer, the ball makes a banana curve and goes into my yard or hits my house, which is okay. We live on a golf course. The point is that if the out-of-bound markers are moved to the property line, to the right, the shape of this hole means that golfers are going to try to aim closer to the homes. Houses are one thing, kids playing in backyards, pets, adults working in the backyard, sitting on the patio, just enjoying the day, now are more in the line of fire of golf balls. So this is a safety issue. I've talked to some people in the city, engineering and recreation. They've been very receptive. I really did feel heard by them, which is important, but I felt as representatives, our representatives, you needed to be made aware of this before the project really is finalized. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's duly noted, right? Okay.
Ben Shapiro, and then after Ben, it'll be Kim Ward.
My name's Ben Shapiro, not Shapino, but that's okay. I live at 5331 Wheatmore Court, and why I'm here tonight, first time in almost 26 years that I've lived here, is because of Gold property. I did not know the Golds personally, with the exception of when Mr. Gold died and Mrs. Gold sold the property at a fraction of the cost to the city of Mason and said what she wanted it to be. My boys at the time were very young, wrote a letter to her thanking her for making it to be a park, not a huge structure, not a huge parking lot, not a huge whatever was planning on being there. So, when I look at the things that ended up being there, and I'm not sure how many of the council people were on council back then, and I know council members change on a regular basis. They're voted in, they're voted out. And the thing with that is that, back then, promises were made to her with what she decided to kind of put into place. And whether, no disrespect to legal counsel, but at the same point in time, attorneys are the only ones that win in anything that you end up dealing with attorney privileges, of how they look at something, if it wasn't worded properly or whatever else. But her true intentions from the letter that we received from Mrs. Gold was to have that property as a park, not a huge facility. We have a Mason Community Center. I didn't agree with it. I never came. I never said anything about it. But at the same point in time, it's part of the high school. They can use the pool. They can do the other things. I love the arts. I have had season tickets to the Aronoff for years. I go to the performances that are performed at the high school, not only from the high school, but from other people. We can use those facilities. So I ask for you, is it right for the city? I would say no. We have other places that we can have those types of things. Is it right for the community? I would say no. Is it ethical and legal based off of what Mrs. Gold wanted? I would say no. And the thing is are you willing to be held accountable for it? Those are the questions that I think that you need to ask yourselves before you make a decision to put a huge facility. And again, I'm not even talking about the Gold property. Also, I don't think it's proper to go to the other property that it's going to, because ultimately what's going to end up happening is you're saying that you have funds that are going to pay for that facility. Yes, but then what happens to when it's paid for and then it's not being used? Who's going to pay for those? The taxpayers. No different than the community center. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Kim Ward, and then I have Frank, and then Judy. I'm going to mispronounce this. I'm sorry. Kudlak.
My name is Kim Ward. I live at 5505 Mason Road, and my property is adjacent in the back of my 1 acre lot, 1.5 acre lot in the back is an acre, to Gold Park. About 2 weeks ago, a little bit more maybe, we were brought together to talk about that property with anybody that was adjacent to it, was brought together. We all had our say. I felt like you all heard, but you now may not have heard like I thought. It was quite clear that the residents adjacent to any of that was not for the arch to be put there. We also have a contract here, and I don't know if you know, but when I sign a contract, and all of you sign a contract, we are stating that we will be honest, we have integrity, and we have faith in that contract. It is not to be given to lawyers to break. I'd like to read what the Golds, I am here for the Gold family. It says, guarantees shall not use property for park purposes only. The second one is the property shall be forever free of all buildings, fences, and structures, except such buildings, fences, and structures are associated with the maintenance of the property as a park. You all saw this, you all have this. This little art museum, it's not little by the way, will bring 500 more cars or more to downtown Mason, with Costco on the other side of Mason. And this, I'll never get out of my driveway. You'll never get out of Grace Baptist Church. You'll never get out of any of the driveways on Mason Road. You'll take in those subdivisions surrounding it, children are at play in those subdivisions. You say that there's multiple locations that you can have fences put up to open during performances. Those end up in some subdivisions. We don't believe that it won't. You all can tell me that, but I don't believe you. So, my thing here is it's time for the city of Mason to listen to the people that bought property and looked online before they bought and saw a 2004 plan that was to be put in place for a passive park, not an art museum. not 500 parking places, and not lights. It's a beautiful area back there. We love it back there. We don't want it. Please listen to us, because if you don't, we will be coming legally. Do you understand that? The Gold family has stated that. Thoughts? I'm here to answer anything you want to ask me.
Well, this is your time to say what you want to say, and we want to allow everybody an opportunity to just.
Well, I hope some of the rest of you will now step up, because we need a big cheer here right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Frank Kudlak. I live at 5383 Wheatmore Court here in Mesa, Ohio. I raised my kids on Wheatmore Court. We've been here almost 30 years now, and I do want to compliment the council that I've worked with throughout the years that I've been here. I was with a large employer at one time, and I can tell you, you guys do a good job of planning. You look at the city, and it's always improvements. I have family that come here and say, man, would I love to live here. They live in Pennsylvania and other places, because there's always something going on. There's always something good going on. There's always something that you are definitely thinking about the families of Mason. So I want to say, first of all, that's a good job. Secondly, I agree with Ben, and I agree with the last lady that just came here. I'm going to be a little bit selfish. I'll live right across from where that's going to be. And the amphitheater would look right in my front yard. And I can tell you, when I sit down, I can hear the football games up here, okay? On a Friday night, I can hear the band. I can hear Mason downtown, the little events that go on down there. I can hear the melatonin or whatever they call it, ting, 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 all the time. And I can only imagine what it would be like if there was music going on there on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, or something like that. That's what really concerns me of that, the noise level. The second thing that concerns me is, and I'll be the first to say it, I challenge cars coming up and down that street. We have people flying up and down that street 50 mile an hour or more now. I was out the other day with my grandson riding his little car, and a lady just came up on her phone, at least 50 miles an hour, and it's every day. There's no stop signs, and there's no nothing there. Safety is my number one concern for my family, for the people in that area. Secondly, I think it's just not a good place to have that. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Judy? Okay, Lori Shu Trump, and then John Milazzo.
Hi, thank you. I'm Lori Shu Trump. I live at 5347 Wheatmore Court. I spoke also the night that we all got together, and I agree with everything that's been said. That is not the appropriate place for the structure that's being presented. I'm actually appalled that it was even presented as a place to be considered by our city council. And same thing, we've raised our family here. We've been here 25 years, and the concern is safety up and down the street. And actually, a lot of people don't even know. They're like, well, where is the Gould Farm? Because they're thinking of a farm, a big open space with a barn. But it's surrounded by backyards. It's surrounded by single-family homes, and that's why they don't even know where it is. Someone came by the event we had downtown. He's like, where is that at? Because you can't see it, and that's how we want to keep it. We want to keep it like that. The same thing with Frank. If we look right out, we're going to see that, and it's beautiful to see the fog on the pasture in the morning, and that's what it should be. You have plenty of other properties that you own as the city that this can be something that can be developed on. I'm saying no. I'm asking you again, as the first person who spoke, to honor the contract that you signed with the family, with the spirit of it being a passive park. We support the performing arts, we support a park, but do not put a building, 500 parking spaces, in the backyards of this whole community. We know your names, we're voters, and we will hold you accountable for what you agreed to with the spirit of the Gould family. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is John Milazzo. I live at 5365 Wheatmore Court, and I feel quite redundant. The previous three speakers said everything that I was going to say, so I'll just add this little bit to it. I believe that council tonight is going to take up reaffirming the commitment to develop the Gold property as a park, and here's the emphasis, consistent with the intentions of Ordinance 2003-130. If that is the case, and if that is your intention, and if everything I've read here falls into place according to what we expect it to be, then we have no quarrel. It will become a park. It won't become a cultural center. It'll be someplace where everybody in the city can show up, just like Makino Park, and do what they want to do. You know, play softball, play soccer, take a walk, ride a bike, whatever it might be. My intention tonight was just to come to say, hey, make it a park, don't make it a parking lot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chris Wyckoff and then Liz Eichler.
Hi, my name is Chris Wyckoff. I live at 5370 Wheatmore Court, pretty close to a lot of the other folks that have spoken tonight. I live there with my wife and my 4-year-old daughter. We moved there in 2015. I'll say one of the selling features of the property was the agreement that it was going to be green space, whether it was farm or eventually a park. We did look up the city plan at the time that we were shopping. And we're pretty excited. And my daughter's 4 now, and she would love to see a park. I'll say I'm very much in favor of the arts as well. I was half excited when I kind of heard a little bit of the news, but the one thing that I will share, I think it's worth mentioning, I'm a little disappointed with the communication strategy that has happened so far. I do appreciate that we were called to a meeting to listen to some of our feedback, but it felt like the meeting started immediately with what is your feedback and not so much about here's what our plan is or here's what we actually want to do with the property. So I think, you know, a lot of people can get wrapped around the axle pretty quickly here. I'm an engineer. I work at GE Aviation, so I like data before I jump to a decision. I'd like to see a little more of that before we consider doing anything else with that other than what's laid out in the plan here. So the outdoor auditorium would be, you know, and I've only found this because I've looked on the Mesa Arts Council site, but it was pretty clear at the last meeting that that's not necessarily endorsed by the city yet, so it's kind of opinions. So I don't know what to believe right now, but if you believe what's on that website, that outdoor auditorium is facing smack dab directly towards my house, and it'd be, you know, twice as close as the Friday night concerts that are in the town already. So I'd like a little more information from the city to kind of tell us what is actually being considered. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Liz Eichler, and I'm at 5877 Running Fox Lane. And thank you for being here and letting us speak. I love the arts. I've participated in the arts ever since I was 14. I was able to have the opportunity to walk to a theater where I could participate in acting, directing, lighting, costuming, and a lot of other things that you could participate with people who are not just your own age, that you have at school, so you can have a lot of mentors. I have 5 kids. I've raised them in 5 different states with a lot of different children's theaters, a lot of different arts opportunities, so I love the idea of Mason coming up and saying, it's time for an arts center. However, I agree with everyone who has spoken, including, and especially the last engineer, saying, where is the feasibility study? Where is the data that says actually who this is for? Because quite frankly, the kids have high school, the kids have middle school. Where's the arts for the adults? And it should be a community arts center. But whatever it is, I think having the premature plans out there with a 1,000-seat theater, which is, I don't think you're understanding. That means it's a 5-story building in the middle of that space, a concrete money pit. That's what a 1,000-seat theater would be on that plan. I drive past the University of Dayton building a new space every day, and it's 400 seats, and it's a 5-story theater to accommodate the fly space, just like at the high school, like where the big M is. So that's the one thing, is that, yes, the video and plan were a little premature, I would bet. And so that tells me that not only that the site is ill-advised for that information, but possibly the group of people who put that information out might be ill-advised and might not necessarily be representing the arts in the city of Mason. There are a number of arts groups that feel that they haven't been consulted. And there's also arts groups we could include, like, if we do have an art center, which I would love, a space for the Indian Dance Company, a place for like glass blowing and clay and things like that, not just a theater first and foremost. Speaking of theaters, I recall that there was an agreement when the high school theater was built that the community should be able to use that. And the Mason Community Players is done with arguing that, but I know the Children's Theater has constantly had to pay more and more and more to use that space. So I think explaining what happened with that beautiful theater at the high school would be great. So yes, I would support an arts center. Yes, I would support a feasibility study. No, I agree with you all. It should not be in that Gold Park space. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you.
Mayor, that's all I have on the sign-up sheet, but I'd invite anybody that didn't have an opportunity to sign up. If you want to address council, now would be the appropriate time.
Okay, was there, okay, there's, yeah.
Hi, Michelle Ashley. I'm at 4758 Manor Lake Drive, Mason, Ohio. So I attended the neighborhood engagement meeting that was held within the past month, where about 150 people attended. And we were told at that time there was really no plans in place. They just wanted to hear from everyone. So like a lot of people here, I was very disappointed that we weren't given any information. It was, oh, we want to hear from you. After that meeting, there was not one person there that supported this. I mean, people support the arts, they love the idea, but in that location, not one person supported it, and many were saying the gridlock, the noise, and most of all, the fact that it completely violates the contract. The contract with the Gould family was very clear. In fact, I'll just read the little excerpt from it, that the property shall be forever free of all buildings, fences, and structures except those associated with the maintenance of the property as a park or parkland, allowing for public use, for public access and use. So when I heard that this was still in the works, I was shocked because I thought, clearly the neighbors do not want it. It was unanimous. And then it obviously violates the contract with the Gould family. So I keep thinking, why are we still talking about this? And then I was even more bothered by the fact that Cincinnati.com, it's gotten the attention of Cincinnati.com, and they had a story, and Diana Nelson is addressing the concerns because they're talking about the fact that it's violating the contract. And she says, it's my understanding from our attorneys that this center does pass the deed restrictions because it allows for public use and access. The point of the restrictions was that they didn't want to build houses or businesses. Well, no, it's not. I mean, that's not accurate. And I don't like that. It feels like it's deceptive. And it feels that, well, the Mason City Council's intention is just to get around the contract, and we'll use legal loopholes. And it clearly wasn't the intention of the Gold family, and it's a clear violation of the contract. So I'm just asking that you all do what is right and ethical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emmy Callahan Smith, and I live at 5535 Wheatmore Court. I also appreciate everything that everyone has said here this evening. In addition, I would like to thank the City Council for putting the speed notice, like the digital signs in our neighborhood last month. I'm not even sure that you're aware that you did that, but it was perfect timing because like 2 days after you had the meeting, they appeared. I'm not sure that you know how frequently speeders are happening in our neighborhood, but they are already happening. And now you want this, or you're proposing this happen in our neighborhood for this Mason Arts Council. And I'm concerned about the speeding that's already going on. And now if this traffic is let into our neighborhood after theater productions, it will just increase. And you are clearly aware that the speeding is going on if the police department is putting these speeding digital signs in our neighborhood now. Also, just this week or last week, a driver almost hit a school bus. And the bus driver had to honk their horn to get the driver to stop. And so it is a real problem in our neighborhood already. And I am concerned about the safety of our children, and it greatly concerns me that we are going to now consider having gates that will allow this much traffic back into our neighborhood when theater productions are going to be exiting on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. So it's a concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to come? Okay, yes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Walner. I live at 5347 Harvestdale Drive. We're hearing from a lot of residents that live on Wheatmore and are directly impacted by this. I live on the far side of the subdivision, so I just wanted to give you my perspective as a resident that's not so directly impacted. I live on Harvestdale, which is the main inn off of Snyder. And again, I have been almost rear-ended numerous times turning left into my neighborhood by people obviously that live in the neighborhood or visiting people in the neighborhood. Strangers coming from events likely are going to be just as inconsiderate, if not more. Traffic apps will be routing people through the surface streets all through the neighborhood to get around the traffic on the roads that can't handle this amount of traffic. People already cut through Concord Crossing and Church Street to avoid Main. So where people are going to access this facility, I don't know. And the noise, again, also a concern. I'm on the far side of the neighborhood. I hear the band. I hear the downtown music. So a full amphitheater there would be a lot of noise, I think, for an entire neighborhood. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come?
Good evening. My name is Lindy Powell. I live at 105 Carnell Place in Mason. And just like the young lady before me, I know that we've had a lot of inputs from our citizens from on the Wheatmore side, and we are on the other side. And so I'm here to represent our little area there on Carnell Place. Some will not be able to make it this evening, but we have been residents of Mason for over 30-some years. We support the arts. My daughter-in-law was the assistant production manager for Playhouse in the Park for over 20 years. We love the arts. Our concern is, of course, we built our home out on this little small street over 25 years ago. We love the area, and we were ecstatic when Mrs. Gould considered using that land as nothing else but a park. We, of course, we are a little bit selfish on our end, of course. We didn't want to see another subdivision going in, but we, again, were just ecstatic when she said no. this is going to be a park. And I just ask again that the city council just abide by her wishes, and I ask that you listen also to our wishes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julie Larger, and I live at 608 West Church. And like you, I thought I should represent the other side from Wheatmore. And also, like somebody else who mentioned it, we looked at that property. When we looked at it, we looked at that plan originally. And we've invested, and we've spent money to have a house that would be by green space. And while everyone's been very nice, and I would too, I told Ashley not too long ago, I could sell Mason to anybody, just take them around to the parks and the pool and the school and the rec center. It's all fabulous, and I love it. But I love parks too, and I walk every day, either Corbin Nixon or VOA, and people are always out walking. That's a lovely part of Mason. And this whole project to me defies common sense when I read it. I would love to see the study that was done. There was in the letter that was sent out, the study saying that Corbin Nixon was a better place, or the Gould Park was a better place than over here by the high school. And that's what started me thinking, why? I mean, you have lights, you have entrances, you have signage points, you aren't going through residential neighborhoods. The Gould Park defies, to me, it defies common sense to put something there. And again, it could be a little selfish on my part. I moved there, we built there because we knew we were going to be by green space. But, and like you, all things aside, I think there was an agreement made with the Goulds, and I think it should be honored. So I hope that you all will do that, because I don't know anyone that lives even close that has any interest in an arts center. And I'm not even sure, I love the arts too. I've been a season ticket holder at Aronoff for years. But I'm not sure, having it closer to the high school where you could collaborate with the high school and the high school arts department, having it close to Corbin Nixon where there's already an amphitheater, having it close to where the Children's Theater could walk straight down Mason Montgomery Road, and there are sidewalks already there. You've put in a beautiful bridge there. I mean, it's close to helping the downtown businesses. Not that Gould Park is far, but we don't have sidewalks, and the homes are close to the roads there. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know how you'd get walking without buying those properties. So I just hope that you will honor the agreement tonight to honor the agreement that you originally had with the Goulds and think of another place to build the Art Center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else that wanted to come up right now? And again, as I mentioned, we do have another recognition of visitors at the end of the meeting if there's something else you want to come back up and say then. Okay, we're going to move on with the agenda. We are to item number 8, which is Resolution 2022-21. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Jeff?
A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Warren County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Okay, Jennifer.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, I know this kind of sounds scary, but as Eric indicated previously at a previous council meeting, this is not the budget of the city. It is a tax budget, and it's a requirement by the Ohio Revised Code for us to prepare this in order for Warren County budget committees to set property tax rates in the city as well as to distribute local government funds. So it's basically just to show necessity within our community for those funding. It's a two-step process. Basically, council hears a first reading of the resolution. Public hearing is set, and then the resolution is adopted. Once adopted, it goes to the Warren County Budget Commission. They then take a look at the numbers in the document and set the property, as I indicated, set the property tax rates as well as calculate local government funding for us. They submit that back to the city, and council has to officially adopt those property tax rates as well as the tax budget. So that's what we're doing here this evening. We're just finalizing the process, the step in this process. So with that, resolution 2022-21 is recommended for adoption. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Okay, any council discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spate?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Okay, item 9, Resolution 2022-2022, motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Jeff?
Approving participation in Region 14 governance structure under the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding.
Eric?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Over the last couple of years, we've talked about this several times, so I don't want to go into too much detail unless there's questions. But One Ohio, as a quick summary, is really the result of litigation that several attorney generals throughout the nation, specifically the Ohio Attorney General, initiated against opioid drug manufacturers and distributors. And as settlement talks progressed, One Ohio was born as a way for those settlement dollars to be equitably distributed throughout the state to help account for the expenses of the opioid epidemic, as well as to finance solutions and care for the results. So that is One Ohio. The city has been a participant in that since the beginning. Over 2/3 of local governments in Ohio did join together to sign up with One Ohio, as did Mason. And collaborative efforts resulting or anticipated to result from that for prevention, treatment, as well as long-term recovery are some of the ambitions for these settlement dollars. In June, council adopted a resolution and kind of formalizing the city of Mason as designated as part of what's being called Region 14. Region 14 includes the counties of Butler, Claremont, Clinton, Greene, Clark, Madison, as well as Warren County. The city has, in order to continue with that One Ohio process, has supported the appointment of county representatives at that, and the governing documents for One Ohio as a total. What's before you now is the governing structure and bylaws specifically for Region 14. So with adoption of Resolution 2022-22, the city is again reaffirming our intention to participate in the Attorney General's settlement through the One Ohio structure, and is further indicating our consent to the governing structure and bylaws, which accounts for the representation within Region 14. The city of Mason is the largest municipality in Warren County, which per these bylaws would afford us the ability to appoint a representative to the board of one of 3 in Warren County to the board of Region 14 for One Ohio. Staff is recommending adoption of Resolution 2222, both to continue the progress, make sure we are eligible for the ultimate distribution of funds, and to support the settlement dollars as well as the treatment options that the financing should provide. Having a representative there also will allow the city to take a lead role in some of those collaborative efforts throughout that county area. I can answer any questions, if any.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
Second.
Is there any council discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I just would like to bring it to the attention, through some of the reading that was provided with this background. I always quote something from Judge Peeler. He told me back in 19 that there were more overdose deaths in Mason, Ohio than there were combined automobile deaths in all of Warren County. So sometimes especially from what we heard tonight, Mason is viewed as, and it's esteemed, and it's looked as, maybe that's not going on here. Well, it is. There's been, a death in downtown, an overdose death in downtown Mason, and it's something that I'm glad we're paying attention to, and I'm glad that we're in a fight. I've been heavily involved with One City for Recovery, that is basically putting people on the streets to go out and meet these folks where they are and where they need help. And they're riding around with first responders and helping these folks get into treatment. And anything that we can do, I'm fully in favor of getting behind this. And I'm just glad that we're in the game of this because we need to do everything we can to curb this because, like I said, a lot of times people just don't believe that that's happening here, and it truly is. And so I'm just happy that we can participate. So good job doing that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to have any discussion or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spade?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Okay, item 10, Resolution 2022-23. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
Can we have the whole resolution read?
I don't have a problem with that. Do I need to get a motion to have it read in its entirety?
No, I mean, under the charter, the default is that it's read in its entirety unless there's a motion to read by title only. So if there's no motion to read by title only, then I'll read the whole thing.
I think we're all good. Go ahead. It's fine. I think it's right. Is everyone okay with that, to read
Okay.
the entire thing? Okay.
All right. This is Resolution 2022-23, reaffirming council's commitment to develop the Gould property as a park consistent with the intentions of Ordinance 2003-130. Whereas Ordinance 2003-130 authorized the city manager to enter into a contract to purchase with Eleanor M. Gould for the property located at 5457 Mason Road, Mason, Ohio. And whereas, as part of said purchase contract, the transfer of the property was predicated on a deed restriction which provided that the city shall use the property for park purposes and any ancillary use necessary to utilize the overall parcels for park purposes. And whereas the deed restriction further provided that the property shall be forever free of all buildings, fences, and structures, except such buildings, fences, and structures as are associated with the maintenance of the property as a park or parkland, allowing for public access and use. And whereas F. Lawrence Averbeck, co-trustee of the Richard E. Gould Irrevocable Trust, by letter dated August 20th, 2022, has expressed his position that the development of the Gould property as a regional center for the arts would be contrary to the deed restriction. And whereas at a recent public meeting, the overwhelming public input was opposed to the development of a regional arts center on the Gould property. And whereas in an effort to avoid costly litigation, it is the desire of council to reaffirm its intent to comply with the deed restriction and develop the property as a park consistent with the intentions of Ordinance 2003-130. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mason, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that the Council of the City of Mason hereby reaffirms its intention to develop the Gould property as a park consistent with the intentions of Ordinance 2003-130. Section 2, that given the concerns raised above, Council no longer supports the development of a regional arts center on the Gould property. Section 3, that this resolution shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Eric, I want to ask you, do you have an update, any updates to this ordinance? Because I know this was not an ordinance that you put on the agenda.
Yes, I don't know that.
Or a resolution, I'm sorry.
I don't have anything to add to the resolution. In particular, I would say as far as the issue with the deed restriction that's discussed in here, as well as the Gould property in general, we have had conversations, anticipating additional conversations with Lawrence Averbeck, who is a member of the Gould family and significantly the executor or co-executor of the trust. The purpose of our conversation was to ensure that goodwill is maintained and to seek a mutual understanding, regardless of the Arts Center or the status of that discussion, which has not progressed to my awareness, but to make sure we are aligned on compliance with the deed restrictions and the purchase agreement. I reassured him that the city has always had every intention to comply with all of the conditions of the sale and purchase of the property. Discussed, there are multiple issues, maybe sometimes overlapping or being interchangeably used here, and certainly want to make sure and clarify that with Mr. Averbeck and try and reach a mutual understanding. That would include the deed restriction that was discussed here and has been mentioned several times, the purchase agreement in general, the park's master plan, all of these kind of different, sometimes entirely separate items, as well as the family's expectations and concerns, as well as the neighbors' concerns. Sometimes those bleed into each other, are used interchangeably, and our effort was to set up some times with Mr. Averbeck to make sure that we had a chance to talk through those and make sure that we understand each other. And again, regardless of an art center, with the city owning that property, moving forward in the future for any type of park use, I wanted to make sure that we understood where they were coming from, how they understood the documents, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
I need a
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, I'm going to allow for, we now have council discussion.
Mayor.
Yes.
I'm glad that we're in conversation with the Gould family. I just wanted to say a couple things. This is so preliminary. I hear you when you say, I wish that we have more answers. I wish we would have a plan. I wish we would have been told more. We intentionally have not moved forward because we wanted to hear what you had to say. Usually when we go further down the road, people come in and they yell and they say, how come we were never told this or never given the opportunity to speak before we invested the money to do all of this? So really that was our intent, to make sure that we listen to everybody first, to kind of get a feel for what the community wants. And we're still listening to you. The Gould property, this is not a done deal. The Gould property is one of a few different locations for this art center. And so I just feel like this was kind of thrown on here. This really wasn't talked about. One of the council members threw it on here. I think it's a little premature. I think we're still discussing it, and we're still, Eric is still talking with the family. Even if we don't do it even if we don't have an arts facility on there, maybe we want to have an arts park. And by putting something like this, it kind of eliminates anything that we can do with the arts in this property, even if we don't put a building on it. So for right now, I think I would like to table this until, Eric is still in communication with the family. I would like to table this for now until a future date.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, is there a second to the table?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to table the ordinance. I'm still going to allow for continued discussion, but there's been a motion and a second to table the ordinance indefinitely, did you say, or for now, or what did you say? I'm sorry. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Table it for now until we finish all of our communication on it.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second, and Councilmember Bradburn, I know you've been raising your hand. You want discussion? Yes,
I was the one that asked that this be added to the agenda. This was after some lengthy discussion with our law director. I did not attend the meeting on the plaza. I was concerned about the fact that Mr. Averbeck indicated that, I'll read the bottom of the letter for August the 20th, my intention is to allow, facilitate, indeed encourage the concerned citizens of the city of Mesa to form a group to raise funds and pursue legal counsel to force timely enforcement of these restrictions and covenants. So I asked Mr. Forbes, our law director, I said, well, are we at the point where we would go ahead and, to some degree, and get maybe depositions from participants? And he says, no, it's not the way it works in Ohio. He says, the way it works in Ohio is that Mr. Averbeck, as a co-trustee of the Richard E. Gould Trust, has the right to bring in Ohio a lawsuit against the city for breach of contract. And I said, well, what happens after that? He says, well, it goes to the court. And what the court would do is the court would look at the four corners of the contract. They wouldn't listen to you. They wouldn't listen to me. They would look at the four corners of the contract. If they could not determine what the contract said and there were ambiguities, they would go back to the originators of the ordinance, which goes back to 2003. And they would also go back to Mr. Averbeck and say, what was your intentions? And then the court would issue a ruling. Basically, we're potentially looking at years of litigation. I don't think we need it. I think we ought to go ahead and honor the Gould request. And I'm ready to dispose of it tonight and not to table it to some committee so nobody knows what happens. Mayor, if I may, to the law director, Mr. Forbes, was there anything that I said in regards to our discussion that I messed up on?
Of course not. I explained it to you, and you. No, that's an accurate representation of how a typical breach of contract claim would go.
Thank you.
Okay, and if we have more discussion, Jeff wanted me to remind you that the discussion has to be inherent to the tabling the ordinance. So,
That's the motion that's on the floor right now.
okay.
Yeah, Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to say, the reason I'm in support of tabling this is, we've got a committee that has been tasked with finding a location for this property, or for this project. Sitting up here with this legislation that was done the way it was done isn't the way to deal with this. I've said all along, and Mrs. Ward, I said to you after that meeting that morning, I am not hell-bent for leather on this project being on that property. I am dedicated to this project getting done, though. I think it's one of the best things we could do for our city. And I am open, I'm listening, I've heard what everybody has said, but I'm not going to tie our hands either. We've got a committee that is tasked with this. That's how we should be dealing with this, and that's what I plan to do. So we'll take this back into committee. We will look at other properties, and we will see if there's a better way to do this. And I am fully committed to that. So that's why I'm in favor of tabling this.
Okay. Any other council discussion? Anyone? Yes, Councilmember Grossman.
What I'm hearing from the motion to table, from the comments from my colleagues, Vice Mayor Nelson and Councilmember Hackey, is that you want to table it, but there's a very strong chance that you'll move forward with recommending Gould property for this project. And so that is what I'm hearing. I know that's not exactly what you said, but that's what I'm hearing. It seems like a double speak. And putting it in a committee where it could be lost in obscurity or take a long time to really get, this public interaction going again. And the tabling also, it means that you're not taking a position on what you believe the proper interpretation of the contract agreement should be on Gould property. I think that it's in the best interest for all interested parties, the city, our council, our staff, the people that are here today from the community, and in particular the Mason Arts Council, to not table this, but to make a decision to pass this resolution tonight. It's very difficult for the Mason Arts Council to be put in this position. And how on earth are they to raise funds under such controversy if the Gould Park were to be identified, if council were to move forward? I just don't see this as a viable opportunity for the city. I don't see it as a win for the city, a win for the Mason Arts Council, or for the residents to try and move forward on that, or for the Gould family. This was Mrs. Gould's dream, and I understand. I'm a big supporter of the arts too. I understand there's a dream of certain council members and people that are on the Mason Arts Council and patrons of the arts in our community that, it's a very exciting dream, but that wasn't Mrs. Gould's dream. And that was not what the agreement between the Goulds and the city was predicated upon. It wasn't what was communicated to the public in the 2004 master plan. It's not what's communicated to the public in the deed restriction. It's an aberration of that, and I don't think that we should do anything but vote on and pass this resolution tonight. I'm curious as well, if we were to approve this type of usage on the Gould property, and for some reason the Mason Arts Council were to back out, would this open up the possibility for other types of development by other interested parties or potentially interested parties? And I'm curious why the Gould property has not been taken off of the Mason Mile project scope. It's still, I looked on the website, and it's still included in the scope of the Mason Mile project with the Chamber's CDC, and I'm curious about that. And to the audience and about this tabling motion, I don't ever recall being given any kind of detailed analysis about the Gould property deed restrictions and covenants in any way, other than that it was set aside for park usage, and whatever we did had to be consistent with the usage of the park. But I never knew until May of this year, when the community brought it forward, that there were covenants and restrictions recorded in the deed. I knew it was supposed to be used as a park, but that's really all I knew, and anything I was told about it was very broad. And so I want to say how sorry I am that it's come to this.
Councilmember Grossman, Jeff wanted me to remind you the discussion has to be inherent to tabling the ordinance.
So thank you. Bringing it back around to tabling, I think that it just exacerbates the uncertainty in our community and with the Arts Council. And I think rather than tabling this, we should pass it tonight, and then we should move forward on new locations, new solutions for all interested parties. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wanted to make a comment during council discussion? Anybody else? Okay, I have a couple of things I want to say. When I first saw the resolution, I had a lot of concerns about it, and for these reasons, I do support tabling this, and you all probably will agree with me once you hear what I have to say. The title of this is Reaffirming Council's Commitment to Develop the Gould Property as a Park Consistent with the Intentions of Ordinance 2003-130. Now, I ask how many of you have seen Ordinance 2003-130? I was not on council then, so I decided to do some homework. And in that ordinance, the council at that time said that this park could be used for active or passive purposes, okay? It also referred to the fact that there needed to be a master plan developed for the park, which was done a few months later. And I think if most of you saw that plan, you would not be happy with that either, because that is not consistent with what the deed restrictions are. And I don't think any of you would like what would happen on that park if we commit to the intentions of the ordinance 2003-130 that follows, and then a master plan on that park follows. I really think that this needs to be tabled because this was not a resolution that was vetted out with our city staff. There was information that was not included. Our city manager is working with, the city manager is working with the co-trustee of the family so that we will do what is within the rights of the deed restriction. We want to do what is best for the family. We don't have a plan, and I think everyone needs to understand that. We're not moving forward with anything. Nothing's been presented to us. The only thing we said was that the Mason Arts Council, which is a nonprofit group, identified Gould property as their number one choice. And we said, present a plan to us, we'll take a look at it, and we'll see if this is what we want on that property, if this is what the community wants. And this is why we have been asking you, and we are listening. There has nothing been presented to us. Mason Arts Council has done nothing. There's been one conversation, I think, one meeting, and there's not been any other meetings. They have done nothing. So there's nothing going forward. There's not any trickery here. And it really frustrates me that people think that we're trying to do something behind people's backs. We're not going to put this on this piece of property if that's what the majority of the people in this community do not want to have. But I'm telling you, you don't want us to pass this because you're going to get a park you don't want, because of the way that ordinance was written. And I think you've been misled to think that this is the answer to that. So I really think that it's best that we table this until our city manager has the conversations he's going to have with the family, and we can do what is right by that family and come to a conclusion that is in the best interest of everybody. You don't want us to pass this, I'm telling you. So I'm in favor of tabling it. Is there anyone else that would like to have something else to say? Councilman, yes.
Yeah, I want to echo what you said. I mean, you know, Mrs. Larger and I, we've had plenty of conversations around this. We've had conversations, I know Mrs. Ward wasn't very happy with me at the last meeting.
And council member, I just want to remind you, it has to be inherent
Yes.
to tabling.
The tabling of it, yes. We're asked to point to legislation that was drafted in 2003. And I've been around Mason since 1980, and we've all seen some major drastic changes. And so now we're sitting here in 2022, and we're asking to reaffirm council's commitment to look at this intentions of ordinance 2003-130. That's not prudent for me to sit up here and say, all right, we're going to do what they did back in 2003. As what the city manager said, what the mayor just said, what's prudent for us is to do what's right, and our intentions are to do what's right. But just to, I mean, in the process of how this was thrown on our docket tonight, that's not how it's done either. This has to be vetted through our city manager, and just to throw up ordinances pointing to something that was originated in 2003, that's not very smart. And to the mayor, I mean, and if anyone reads this, I mean, you can go down and the deed restrictions, which I want to honor the deed restrictions, but if we want to be honest with ourselves, I read the master plan, and in the master plan, I have what it says here. In the master plans, it says softball field, volleyball court. Never seen any one of those without a fence.
Mayor, this is not germane to the tabling.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I want to table it.
Because it's after the
Hey,
ordinance.
I'm going to ask that everyone stop, and I'll just say, Councilmember Chance, please make it inherent to
Okay.
tabling.
Well, I want to table it because if we're pointing towards something that is in a master plan, it all has fences and it all has buildings, and this thing is back in 2003, and I want to look at this thing comprehensively, smart, not look at something that is 19 years old.
Okay, anyone else want to make another comment?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just briefly, I'll be brief on the tabling. So I don't know Mrs. Gould. I never met Mrs. Gould, so I can't speak to her intentions. The only thing that I can go off of that I see is the agreement that the city made through the deed restrictions. So those are the things that we have to honor. So we need something that points to that, not this ordinance that came after the deed restrictions, that came before even a plan that was created. So I'd rather see something along those lines. I'd like to table this and get something better in front of us, please. Thanks.
Yes, Councilmember Grossman.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to some of the arguments for the motion to table. When you referred to the original ordinance from 2003, I don't believe you're correct in the ordinance stating that it could be for an active or passive park. But I do recall reading in the memo that a justification for purchasing the property was because the city needs more active and passive parks. But I read the documents, I read the contract, and it's very clear that it's to be maintained as a passive park, not an active park, no programmed sports. The 2004 Parks Master Plan, that was a collaboration with Mrs. Gould, who was alive at the time and apparently very sharp. This wasn't her dying wish, but this was something that she planned with the city. And this is what she approved of. There's, just like a restroom structure in that plan and a covered pavilion.
Okay, I have to ask
Minimal
you.
things. So I'm
inherent to
yes,
tabling.
but I'm just adding some context and clarification to some of the comments that were brought up by you and Member Chance. Throwing up
I
ordinances.
don't think that's appropriate. You're Your
Yes, it
conversation
is.
has to be
It is
to
germane.
tabling
Okay.
the motion to table.
I believe you were speaking to Jeff when I was talking, and perhaps you didn't hear. I was responding to your justification for tabling, which was that you don't think this audience has seen that ordinance or understands that the ordinance states it's to be used for an active park, but that's not correct. It was a justification for purchasing more parkland at that time. Okay, so I just want to also remind council that it's not incorrect. The charter gives any council member the authority to add anything to the agenda, including an ordinance. So I want to make that clear so the public understands that. And that's not, in my view, a justifiable reason to table.
Inherent to motion to table, please.
That's inherent
That's
to
not,
the motion to
it's
table.
not.
All right. I think you're making a mistake, council. But I would like to add an amendment to the motion. And my amendment to the motion is to table this for 6 weeks. So that, no, I'm going to change that. I'm going to amend my amendment to the motion. I'm going to table it until October 10th so that we can have an update and a report on the progress that has been made on October 10th's meeting.
Okay, so this is where I jump in usually. So that, what you have on the floor was a motion to table. Now there is a motion to amend that motion to table because the original motion was just to table it indefinitely. This is to table it specifically to the October 10th meeting. That, correct? That's the motion. Is there a second then to that motion to amend?
Yeah, I'll second that. Let's move it along.
Okay, so the motion to amend has a second. You can allow for discussion. Any discussion at this point is only about whether to, on the amendment, to make it specifically to October 10th. So you can
Well, I do have a question. If we do it October 10th, do you already have a meeting set up? Would we have any update by then?
I can't promise that. Mr. Afferbeck was going to follow up with dates that he was available. He had mentioned that he was aiming for early October.
For what?
Early October, but we have no we haven't vetted any dates yet. He was going to follow
There may
up.
not be any update by October 10th. That's what you're saying. You don't know.
I can't promise.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment. I would like to table this indefinitely until the Arts Committee can discuss this, and
Sorry,
it can.
I'm sorry. Can I just, I want to time out. When you say, is it a motion to amend the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Point of order.
It needs.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Point of order. I think it's my understanding that the motion to table is not technically debatable or amendable. Is that correct?
I think you are correct, actually.
Then
I'm sorry.
I think he is correct. We've seen this before.
I don't know, but I know that at this point, we have entertained discussion, and we've just entertained an amendment.
okay. Thank you.
And so I will apologize that if I've allowed it to go outside the scope of, Robert's rules, that's on me. But at this point, given the practice that we've just done, I think it's probably a safer bet to just continue on the path that we are. So and I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure, since I'm stuck being the parliamentarian here.
Mayor,
So your motion to amend the amendment is,
We need to do our due diligence. We need to have the proper meetings. We need to discuss different locations. We need to look at the prior ordinance, because now there's a lot of questions towards it. We're not going to rush through this. We have no reason to rush through this. This is very important to our community, and I'm taking this serious. So as of right now, I would like to table this indefinitely until the Arts Council can have proper discussions, until Eric and our legal counsel can work with communicating with the families and do their due diligence. I don't want this to keep coming up every month and, us doing this every month until our due diligence has been done. It's just wasting everybody's time.
Can I just make one clarification, because I know people get confused about this. what Vice Mayor Nelson is saying, she wants it to be vetted out in the Arts and Culture Committee of Council, which is very different than the Mason Arts Council, the nonprofit group that wants to put the regional center there. I want everybody to understand there's a difference there, and I know people get that mixed up. This is a committee of council. She wants to have a meeting first. Okay?
All right, sorry.
Okay, it's not
Just hang on.
appropriate to speak from the audience. Hold on.
I can promise that we'll answer that question, but I'm trying to keep about 14 motions and amendments straight. So at this point, I just want to be clear. We had a motion to table indefinitely. There was a motion to amend that motion to table it to a definite date of October 10th. If I'm understanding your amendment to amend the amendment, it's basically to just go back to tabling it indefinitely.
Correct.
So then that's not a proper motion to amend because that's,
Well, I didn't have definitely before.
well, it was. I mean, if it's not, by default, if it's not tabled to a date specific, then
Okay.
it's tabled indefinitely. So I think what may be most appropriate, but I'm not the boss here, so is to, unless there's further discussion, to vote on the motion to amend the motion. Basically, what I think you're voting on is, do you want to table this until October 10th specifically?
Okay. Are we ready for roll call? Dan?
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
No.
Mayor Spaeth?
No.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
No.
Councilmember Chance?
No.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes?
Councilmember Hackey?
No.
Okay, that means Councilmember Grossman's motion to amend the motion to table fails. We are back to the original motion to table indefinitely from Vice Mayor Nelson. That has not been voted on yet, but the amendment did fail. So at this point, we're back on the motion to table indefinitely. And unless there's further discussion, it may be appropriate to vote on that.
And I think we've had ample discussion. I'm ready for roll call.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spaeth?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
No.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
No.
Okay, thank you. And I know you said you want to know the members of the Arts and Culture Committee. That's a difficult one. We have I can't speak tonight. Vice Mayor Nelson, we have Councilmember Chance, and also Councilmember Hackey, the three-member group on that, okay? Okay, item number 11, ordinance 2022-93. We need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I lost my place. Ordinance 2022-93, approval of the record plat for the Young subdivision.
Okay, Kurt?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the plat of the property in question. This went to Planning Commission September 6th. It's a little hard to see, but this parcel has a house on it, and it's actually two lots. So there's a larger lot here and then a smaller lot here. What this replat would do is consolidate that lot and then dedicate the right-of-way to meet the thoroughfare plan on East Street. So with that, it was recommended for approval by Planning Commission, and ordinance 2293 is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? A motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, any council discussion?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a question. Do we know what the usage of the property is proposed to be?
This is just a curiosity.
I believe they're just going to use it as a house or possibly a rental property, but currently the house goes across that property line, so I think they were just cleaning up the property.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call.
Mayor Spaeth,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Okay, item 12, ordinance 2022-94. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Jeff?
Approval of the record plat for TWAS Properties LLC.
Okay, Kurt?
Yes, thank you. This is also a plat that went to Planning Commission September 6th. This, again, is a consolidation of two parcels that exist out in front of Mason Grand. This is along State Route 741 or Kings Mills Road. This will consolidate those two lots into one for a future tidal wave car wash facility. And there was some contingent items on Planning Commission, basically just title and minor changes to the plat in accordance with the Warren County map room. So with that, ordinance 2294 is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions you have on this one as well.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Mayor Spaeth.
Yes. Item 13, ordinance 2022-95. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city law director to file a petition for appropriation of property necessary for the State Route 741 widening project, determining public exigency and declaring an emergency, Sandeep Basu and Preeti Basu.
Okay, Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is really the last step in the appropriation process. We had passed the resolution previously. We've served the property owners, and then this is, again, the last step in the quick take process. We're very close to working things out. This is, again, a friendly acquisition where the issue is the property owners, if you recall, own the property. The HOA has an easement on the property, and they're working out between them the distribution of funds. The HOA also has some minor landscaping and things on the property. So we're very close to working this out, but we would like to pass this just in case it's needed to keep the project on schedule. So with that, ordinance 2295 is recommended for adoption. It has emergency clause to be able to pass it immediately.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Okay, any council discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Mayor Spaeth,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, item 14, ordinance 2022-96. I need a motion to read by title only. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Yes. Anyone opposed? Okay, Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into agreement number 38083 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the purpose of constructing the State Route 741 0.19 streetscape and urban paving project.
Okay, Kurt?
Yes, thank you. This one is for the 741 corridor as you enter the city of Mason off of I-71. For a long-term goal of ours is to beautify that entrance to the city, creating a more memorable gateway. This project will be the first phase of that, and what it would be is the streetscape portion of it is taking that long, I think it's 1,500-foot long narrow concrete median, making that into our standard median with landscaping and boulevard lighting. While we do that, the ODOT has scheduled that area to be resurfaced under the urban resurfacing program. And that's what this agreement is for, is to authorize those grant funds and then allow us to bid out the project. So we would bid both of those, the streetscape and the resurfacing, out as one project. And this agreement allows us to do that and makes us abide by the ODOT rules and regulations, federal regulations for those funds. So with that, ordinance 2022-96, authorizing the city manager to sign this agreement is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Kurt. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to say I'm really excited about this project. I've been wanting the beautification of that corridor for so long. When we have ATP, we have people coming from all over the world, and it just didn't look, up to standards of what Mason is. So I'm really excited about this project. Thank you for working on it, Kurt.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spade?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Okay, item 15, ordinance 2022-97. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Ford Development Corp. in an amount not to exceed $866,061 for the Indianwood Drive Storm Sewer Improvements Project.
Okay, Kurt?
Yes, thank you. This, as Jeff mentioned, this is the East Indianwood Drainage Drive area. Back in 2019, we did a drainage study. I should say Josh Creech in our Public Utilities Department has done a great job on this project, a lot of work. He led this drainage study. They actually got about 30 surveys back from neighbors in this area of flooding that they're experiencing. This area has ditches and driveway culverts, very minimal public storm sewer infrastructure, and would greatly benefit from a storm sewer project there that would reduce the amount of flooding that occurs in that area, both in the streets, yards, and around, and sometimes in the structures out there. We determined the areas where we could get the most bang for our buck as far as fixing some of those stormwater issues, and that's what was bid out. We had $700,000 in the budget, and we expected bids to come in a little bit higher. Our lowest bidder, Ford Development Corporation, came in at $866,000, and the highest bidder was almost $1.5 million. So a pretty big range, but again, with our electronic bidding, we got 6 bids, and we're happy with the bids, and staff still feels like, although it's higher than anticipated, we think it'd still be prudent to move forward with with this project. And there are funds in the stormwater budget that could be allocated towards the additional money needed for the project. So with that, ordinance 2297, it authorizes a contract with Ford Development Corporation for this project is recommended for adoption.
All right, thank you, Kurt. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Okay, any council discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hackey?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Mayor Spade?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Okay, item 16, overview and full council discussion of proposed Chapter 125 real property transaction disclosures. Okay, so when I saw this on the agenda, I had to ask our city manager what this was about, because normally we don't have any kind of overview or full council discussion of any item at a council meeting. We do that outside of a council meeting, like at a work session or a committee meeting, something like that. And for those of you that don't know, Chapter 125 was about, transparency in real property transactions. And that involving the city acquiring property or selling property. Well, I think it was back in, is it 2018? I don't know when we started the process. I could be wrong on that. It could be 2017 or 2018. I can't remember. But the discussion started then, and it was vetted out for a very long time, and Chapter 25 came from that. We even had an ad hoc committee of members of the community, and we also had, at that time, Councilmember Michael Gilb headed that ad hoc committee to look at what we passed as Chapter 125. And that ad hoc committee made some recommendations. The council at that time, we approved it. It was put into force. It was put into the codified ordinances. So then, I believe maybe last year it was, the council, at that time I was not on council, decided that they wanted something a little bit more, and they voted to put on the ballot in November a charter amendment, which then required all council members sign a statement saying where we disclose whether or not we have any conflicts whenever we are acquiring property or selling property. So after that passed by the public, that was voted in by the citizens of Mason, we have used that a couple times this year since I've been back on council. And we understood that the charter amendment was in conflict with what was in the codified ordinances, Chapter 125. So at our last meeting, we repealed Chapter 125, so there would not be that conflict any longer. I really was kind of surprised and disappointed that this is back on here again. I'm not sure why we continue to vet this out, but I'm willing to consider discussing this at a work session. I don't think it's appropriate that we discuss it here at a council meeting. This is not when we do that. And item 17 is a ordinance 2022-98 for our first reading in regard to adopting the Chapter 125. This needs to be vetted out at a work session, and like I said, I'm willing to consider that at a future work session. I'm not sure why this continues to get brought back up. So, yes.
Mayor, if it's appropriate at this time, I'd like to make a motion to remove items 16 and 17 from the agenda. As I mentioned earlier, there's times to be doing these things, and like you said, I think a work session is much more appropriate than us having a full council discussion on something that we haven't, it just shouldn't be taking place here. So I want to make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay. Is there any council discussion to this motion? Yes, Councilmember Grossman.
I expected a motion to table, but I didn't expect a motion to pull it off the agenda. And the reason, Mayor, as I am authorized by the charter as a single member of council that I put items 16 and 17 on the agenda was to get a dialogue started amongst the group of 7. I don't have the authority to call a work session on my own. But I wanted to give the public an opportunity to understand what Chapter 125 really is. And the entire ordinance was not, the one that you repealed, was not in conflict with the charter amendment. And this one, that is item 17 on the agenda, as you know, I mentioned I was going to revise this, and I worked with our law director to do so, that we did this together at my request. This is not in conflict with the charter at all. You had this in your packet, and as you often remind us how important it is to do our homework, you had the opportunity to read it before coming to this meeting, and this is just listed as a first reading. But I wanted to make sure that the public understood that I'm still fighting for transparency in real estate transactions on all sides of the transaction. And your conduct today and asking to take it off the agenda speaks volumes to everybody in this community. And I'm expecting this to be another really long, hard battle. I'm just so beside myself with disappointment about this. You're forgetting that every council member has the authority to bring things to the agenda. It's not a gang of 5. It's not a gang of 4. It's not a gang of 3 or 2 or 1. It's a team of 7. I hope that no one here votes to remove this from the agenda. The public has a right to know what their representatives are fighting for them.
Mayor?
Okay, sir, okay,
Yeah,
Councilman.
so I've been involved in these discussions ad nauseum, and here's the problem I have with this whole chapter 125. That this isn't an indictment on the team of 7. It's an indictment on staff. Because what happens with real estate transactions, if anyone thinks that we're running around trying to organize real estate transactions, that's not what happens. We saw Michelle Blair here tonight, one of the best in the business when it comes to economic development. So she's out doing her job, recruiting great businesses like CM Paula, all these other businesses, and when it comes...
As a point of order, Mayor, he's assigned motive, and he is not speaking in a matter that's germane to the motion.
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, these real estate transactions are fully baked before they come to us. Well, I'll call the question then. How's that? Let's call the question. Can we just vote?
Okay, roll call. Wait a minute. You want to go over it?
No, I don't need to go over anything, but just, you can't just call the question. I mean, unless there's further, well, if there's further debate, you can continue with debate. If there is a motion to close debate, you could do that. Or if there is no further discussion, then you can call the roll.
I'll make a motion to close the debate.
Okay, is there a second? There's no second? Okay, so
if there is further discussion, now would be the appropriate time. If not, then you can call the roll.
Mayor, I just have something I want to say.
yes.
We've been doing this for years. I do have an issue with a council member writing these kind of code sections. This should be left up to legal, not a council member. We saw huge loopholes in this section 125 when the downtown Cohen development happened. It's very concerning. So the Ohio Ethics Commission has rules of ethics that we have to abide by. We do abide by them. If we don't, I mean, that's corrupt behavior. It's like asking someone every time they go into work, hey, I'm not going to steal from you today. Let me sign a piece of paper that says that. The taxpayer or the residents voted through a charter amendment on this exact thing. We need to leave it what they proposed. And if there's any changes, it really needs to go through attorneys and not council because, like I said, there was major loopholes in it. So we've been talking about this for years. We've had some of the best attorneys in that ad hoc committee. And whatever they came up with, we abided by. So I would actually like to table this because I'm kind of tired of bringing it up all the time.
I mean, there's already a motion on the floor to remove
to
remove those 2 items from the agenda. That's what this discussion was about. You're not. I mean, we have not yet at all reached the merits of the ordinance. The motion that's on the floor with the second is to remove items 16 and 17 from the agenda.
I second that motion. Is that what we need?
It's been seconded, it's been discussed, and
Okay.
yes, I would, unless there's further discussion, you can call the roll.
Anyone else? Yes.
Mayor, in response to that, the indictment on staff does not exist. It's not an indictment on staff, Mr. Chance. This is an effort to provide written disclosures of relationships with counterparties in any real estate transaction. So the seller discloses how they're involved with city staff or council members and vice versa. And if there's a third party involved, so we worked on the loophole, and this did go through legal. Jeff Forbes wrote this, not me. At my request, we worked on it. And we actually, if you would give it a chance and not pull it off the agenda, we worked on addressing the concern that you brought up as a loophole. And I believe what you meant by the loophole is that a transaction could be made with the city, and then one party could transfer it to another party in the future that has a conflict with a council member or a staff member. Well, that's the status quo right now. All we're asking for is written disclosures, a sign-off on both sides of the transaction. We worked in earnest to address your concern about the loophole. But you guys just want to pull it off the agenda so it goes into oblivion and we don't hear about it again. I don't understand why this council is so afraid of having disclosures on all sides of the transaction for the public's benefit. It's not an indictment of staff. I don't know what you mean by things being baked, but it's simply writing down what your potential conflicts of interest may be with the counterparty, and that's it. It's so easy. So I'm just, again, I encourage you to vote against pulling this off the agenda. We should be courageous, and we should work on this on behalf of the public.
Mayor,
Okay, is there anyone else?
real quick. Through that ad hoc committee, I had the chance, what's that?
And this is only as to the question of removal, the two items, removing them from the agenda. That's
Well,
what,
and the reason why I want to remove this, because one, it's not going to go off into oblivion. It's in our charter. It's in our charter. So you can look it up. It's in the charter or Constitution of the Mesa, Ohio. And not only that, but I had an opportunity to talk to some of the attorneys and the people in the ad hoc committee. And the only thing this was going to do, when they interviewed businesses and companies, you know what it does? It makes them look elsewhere than Mesa, Ohio, because they don't want the rule of government on them, telling them when they can do things, what they can do. And what I mean by fully baked, I mean when we sit down in economic development, this stuff is brought to us, and they've pretty much worked out all their agreements and arrangements. And then we got to look at the merit of the deal, like we saw tonight. Is there an ROI? Does it make, is the revenues there for us to justify abatements? That's when we look at it as an economic development committee. And so, you know, I think I've mentioned this many and many a times. I am just a limited government kind of guy, and this is just overreach. We try to compete as much as we want to look at this municipality, Mason, that doesn't have to compete with Liberty Township, with Westchester, with Lebanon, with other places that are trying to attract these businesses. Well, this handcuffs us. This handcuffs our economic development team, which I believe we have the best in the region. It handcuffs them. Because if you ask these companies, some of our large companies, how many Fortune 500 companies do we have in Mason, to do these type of disclosures, guess what? They're not going to like it. They're not going to like it, and they will go elsewhere. And so our tax base goes up because we can't recruit businesses. I heard that time and time again. This is nothing but government overreach for the buzzword of transparency. It's not, like I said, we sit as an economic development team, and they're brought to us from the director of economic development. And I've heard it from companies that said, if this was in place, we'll go elsewhere. We'll look elsewhere. And it's just not smart.
Who are the companies?
Councilmember Chanceless Rep, are you?
That's all I have
Okay.
to say.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say again what I said at the very beginning. This is not, this is the kind of discussion we should be having at a work session, not at a city council meeting. So I said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm willing to consider adding this as a topic to a future work session, and I would like to have some respect on that. Okay, and we can continue this discussion and decide whether or not there needs to be another chapter 125. And then we can bring it to council, but it's not appropriate for us to sit here and talk about this now. So I'm going to ask for roll call.
Are you going to set a work session date?
I'm going to talk to Mr. Hanson because I know he's going out of town. He's got some things coming up, so I'm not going to set a date right this second. We will get a date proposed. So again, this is a motion to take items 16 and 17 off of the agenda, correct? Correct. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Grossman.
No way.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Mayor Spaeth.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
No.
Councilmember Hackey.
Yes.
Okay, item 18, we've already covered. We had that earlier on the agenda. So we're to item 19, which are committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report?
Mayor?
Yes.
The Arts and Culture Committee met, and we had Dr. Lucy Gunther come in and talk to us. She has put together the Mason Symphony Orchestra. She has 3 performances a year and is going to be adding a special concert for children with sensory issues. And it's quite amazing what she has done and how she has brought together professional musicians from all over to play. So we talked to her a little bit and about her goal for what she sees in Mason. We also talked about the Southwest Philharmonic concert this summer was a huge success, and we had a lot of feedback on that. And we talked about setting up another concert for next year. And that was pretty much the extent of it. We had the Heritage Festival, which next year's Heritage Festival we're already working on. Our goal is to have in the park like an arts display, what's the word I'm missing here? An arts festival, arts display, alongside the Heritage Festival, as well as a car show. So we're really excited about that and have begun talking about that. And then this year's Heritage Festival, Ashley was going to talk about briefly. He's also on the committee.
Sure. Yeah, I had the chance.
Excuse me, wait, is this still about arts and culture?
Yes.
Okay.
I was sick.
Okay, are you
weekend.
finished? Because then that'll be your time on talking.
Yes, I am finished. But I'm going to let him speak on the Heritage Festival.
It was fun. No. It reminded me back when, we moved it back to downtown, and it felt like home again. It felt like, the heartbeat of Mason is downtown, and I loved seeing, the streets were packed. I mean, and then that night with the bands, everybody that was able to attend the music. And I have to openly admit, every time Bronson Arroyo got to play here, I was not in town, and I thought maybe the appeal was, he pitched for the Reds, and now he plays in a band, and people want to come hear him. But the guy is phenomenal. And he was the closing act that night. It was still crowded. The bounce houses were a ton of fun. Just great job. I know to staff being able to move it and accommodate it downtown. And what we did was, I think it was just absolutely, it felt more like our Heritage Day because we did it downtown. So and again, next year we are definitely looking to enhance it with some other curricular activities, throughout the day. So it was really good. Great job to staff on accommodating the downtown thing.
Okay, anybody else have a committee report?
I'm
sorry.
I'll flow right through to the golf course.
Okay, that's fine.
We had a golf course committee meeting. A lot of discussion out there in regards to, if everyone's not aware, that this is the 50th anniversary of the golf course. One of the cool things about that is this was Jack Nicklaus's first golf course that he designed. It's where I learned to play golf. I got to go watch the seniors, the LPGA, with my papa here. That's an heirloom, and it's near and dear to me. And we've had a lot of discussions around the golf course. And Kate, who is with the new management group, she's come in, and if you talk to anyone out there, there's a breath of fresh air, and there's still a lot to be done. We're still not getting to where we want in regards to some of our goals, but Councilmember Strickler pointed out in that meeting, if you look at what we've been able to accomplish over the last year and a half, we're getting brand new irrigation out there that hasn't, 50 years old? 50 years old. We're getting brand new irrigation, state-of-the-art irrigation, so our greens, our fairways, our tee boxes are going to get the proper irrigation, which we've needed desperately. And if you get out there in the summer, if it does stay in water, it'll burn. That's not going to happen anymore. We got brand new carts. If you've been out there, we have the GPS, we have the geofencing. I mean, the carts are phenomenal. I think the carts might have been from 72 also, but brand new carts. The aesthetics inside in the bar. We've upgraded the bar. We've upgraded the restaurant. Again, and with the 50th anniversary, we had our first annual Grizzly Classic. It was a golf, we're making strides in the right direction. And we're just, and we're getting close in regards to tackling a lot of the other things too. There's some exciting things in regards to looking at some redesigns. We have some plans there. But it's just, to be able to recognize the wins is something that we have to do in regards to the golf course. And we're getting there, and I would just like to give a shout out to Kate and her staff. It's been difficult. Obviously, she took over right in the heart of COVID, so that's been difficult on her. Staffing's been difficult. I was out there for Greg Richards' celebration after coaching for 29 years, being a teacher for 40, and she's out there, tending bar. And so, again, Josh, thanks for pointing that out, that, there's a lot of times out there at the golf course, it gets a lot of darts, but we're making some huge strides out there. So pretty exciting times to come. That's all I have.
Okay, anyone else have a committee report?
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, if it's appropriate here, we did not have a finance committee meeting, but just as a member of the finance committee, I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was important, so I thought it would be appropriate here. Just wanted to bring up an award that the city received, the finance department. They received the Auditor of State Award with Distinction. So if I can just read a little bit here, but it's by keeping accurate financial records, governing bodies demonstrate their commitment to efficient, effective, and transparent service. This award honors public entities who've put in the hard work to keep their finances in order. So that's from Auditor Faber. So the Auditor's Office presents the Auditor of State Award with distinction to local governments and school districts upon the completion of a financial audit. So they received the award after many criteria of a clean audit report. So it's a pretty big deal. And just a little bit more on that. So the attainment of the Auditor of State Award with distinction is considered a significant accomplishment for local governments and their management. The city has received the award numerous times in the past. So it's, we've shown that over and over again. And then just to make some acknowledgments that the award would not have been possible without the cooperation of all of the departments of the city. So Finance Director Joe Riegelsperger, Assistant Finance Director Mary Mueller, and the accounting firm of Plattenberg & Associates. So the award represents a significant advance of professionalism of the city in general and speaks highly of the finance department in particular. So I just want to bring that up because I think that's important to acknowledge that and recognize the work that the finance department's done. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and congratulations to Joe and our finance department. I did want to mention, we had a special council meeting on September 6th, and at that time, I appointed a ad hoc rules committee. We've been getting told for a while that in our Chapter 121 in our codified ordinances are our council rules. So there are some things in there that are archaic and need to be revised. But also, I have some current concerns about council conduct. And so I wanted this rules committee to take a look to see if we need to add anything to our Chapter 125 council rules. So we did have a meeting right prior to this council meeting. It was our first meeting, and we're just getting started. Staff gave us some homework to look at what some of the other municipalities are doing as far as conduct, a code of conduct, that kind of thing. And also, we're going to take a look to see if there's anything we need to do, like I said, to add into our codified ordinances. So we do have another meeting set up for October 10th at 4 p.m. So that's all I have on the ad hoc rules committee. Is there anything else? Yes.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Have you guys considered, I have a question about that committee, and then I have a follow-up on another committee report. Have you considered modeling what the city of Cincinnati has done with a code of conduct? You have that with you? Okay. I thought about bringing that up today. Okay. And on that, in response to that, I think about how to address this. Are you finished with your committee report?
Yes.
Okay, because I had a report regarding committees that I think is relevant, especially with the audience here today. I scheduled a recreation and community meeting for September 9th. And as the mayor just mentioned, we had a September 6th special meeting of council, and in the public portion of that, she dissolved that committee and basically took it away and replaced it with the Rules Committee. And she expressed just now she's had some concerns with council conduct during committees. And I just want you to know that I invited the mayor to express any concerns she may have with the way I've conducted my committee, that committee I was a chairperson of, and she did not respond to me, but yet she removed me and my colleagues from that committee and removed the committee altogether. And I was very sad about that, because something that I had done in scheduling the September 9th Recreation and Community meeting was I asked our city manager if we could have staff put their heads together and come to us as a committee, because we cover the topic of parks, to see if there were any other possible locations for an arts center other than the Gould property in the city. And we didn't get to have that meeting. We were going to have it actually at our new Palmyra Dog Park. And yes, you heard that right, Palmyra Dog Park. That's something our committee was working on a lot, and that was a passion project of Councilmember Bradburn, who is on that committee. So I was really sorry to see us taken off that committee. But that dog park opens October 10th, and that's our set date. I read that in the memos that we got from our staff in our packet. So hopefully there'll be more advertisement about it, but it should be a beautiful park. And I want to congratulate Tony Bradburn, because he worked very hard on that for years, and he has championed that cause for many years. And it's going to be a really, really nice place. I wish we could have gone on a tour as a committee on September 9th there. And that's all I have for committee reports.
Okay, let's go on to item 20, which is old and new business. I just want to say thank you to all the staff that worked really hard for the Heritage Festival. I think it was a really great idea to bring it back into the downtown area, and I think it was very well attended, and it was a really great event. And I don't have any specific names. I know there's a lot of people that work on that. And then also I wanted to ask Eric to talk about what happened at the pickleball tournament. That's kind of a new thing that happened here in Mason. A lot of people are really getting into pickleball. And I don't know if you realize there was a tournament out at the tennis center, correct? And I don't know a lot about it, so I wanted us to mention it, and I really don't know that much about the pickleball, what happened, because I was out of town, I think, when that happened.
Well, I didn't have the nerve to go in and watch the pickleball. I understand maybe some council members did. I drove through the parking lot, and it was a little crazy. There were a lot of folks out there. It was not unlike tennis, and it may have been the same people, but it was a different crowd. So I don't.
Do you want to describe that crowd?
No. It was different than tennis.
Okay.
Same people, but different crowd.
I was there. Do you want me to comment on that real quick?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think
it was
pickleball's
absolutely
fun.
phenomenal. Like, we do have a neighbor that is crazy into pickleball, and it's my 8, 11, and 13-year-old's best friend, and he's like this gentle guy. Then you get him on the pickleball court. So I had to go watch him, and it was. But not only that, but they had the #1 male and #1 female in the world there. ESPN was there. It was, I was there first thing in the morning and through to late morning, but it was a huge crowd. It was just, I love seeing that place programmed again. You know, it sits out there, this huge icon, this world-class facility, to be able to see, and pickleball is going nuts in regards to popularity. And I think it spun. I mean, it was literally, it came up and neighbor said, hey, do you know anything about this pickleball tournament? I'm like, well, I've heard about it, but did not know ESPN was going to be there. #1 guy, #1 gal, and she's 14 years old. And the cool thing is they just mingle with the crowd too. So everybody gets to meet them. So it was very well attended. And what I love about it is it's a very active sport, but it allows all ages, to participate, because it's a very strategic game. It's not it can get very fast-paced, but it's very strategic in how you play it. And I like to see just the various demographics of the players. And so it was fun, and I major kudos and I think, and I talked to, I think the guy's name was Ruben, who was one of the organizers, and his intentions are They said they want to come here every year. So I just look at that thing going crazier and crazier with the popularity of pickleball. So I am kind of confused by the crowd. I mean, they were great.
It was a great crowd. I'm saying it's the same people. They bring a different attitude to pickleball. It's a little
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, does anybody else have anything for old and new business, please?
Mayor?
Yes.
I read that the Ohio EPA has finalized the 2023 Drinking Water Assistance Fund Program Management Plan. The plan includes more than $1.5 million in funding requests for a record number of infrastructure projects around the state of Ohio. The Drinking Water Assistance Fund, which is also known as DWAF, provides financial and technical assistance for a variety of projects that help improve or protect the quality of Ohio's drinking water. The 2023 DWAF program year runs from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I dug a little deeper into it, and I found that $71 million of the $1.5 million goes towards lead service line replacement. A few years ago, I had addressed the issue of the lead service lines that are in Mason, and that the individuals who are impacted may not be aware that they are drinking water from lead pipes. I asked the Utilities Committee to address the issue, but never heard back. Can someone from city staff please look into this funding and see if we qualify for it? If we do, I would like to ask the mayor to hold a work session to talk about how we could use this money to fix the lead service lines in Mason. It just sickens me to know that children are drinking out of lead pipes in Mason.
Yes, we can absolutely check into that. We have had programs with GCWW. I was just comparing notes. I don't think they have found any lead lines in the city of Mason to date. There are funding mechanisms through, there were areas we were concerned because of the age, but unless Kurt or Jennifer have a different recollection, every time we went in and tested, there were no lead lines. That's not to say that there may yet be homes untested, and we encourage folks that have older houses or have concerns, do a test, contact us. We can make sure they get a test done. But as we did projects through several different neighborhoods, I think so far we've been very fortunate. No Mason homes have that issue.
Great to hear. But I wonder if we could take funding from that and maybe send a kit to everybody's home with a postcard saying, hey, test your water, just to be sure, since there was a concern.
I think we can do that without that funding through GCWW.
Okay, great. But we still might want to look into the funding to see if we qualify, so that in the event that we do.
We'll get any money we can. Bet.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anything else for old and new business? Okay, yes.
I do have something to share for old and new business. And this is a question for our parliamentarian. That would be you. Would it be proper for me to read chapter 125 into the record at this time for old and new business? I'm not sure what the answer to that question is.
We don't have a chapter 125.
I think you mean the ordinance.
Document. May I read this document into the record at this time as a matter of old and new business?
I mean, I don't think that that's a question of parliamentary.
I'm going to
procedure.
respectfully ask that we put this at a work session. And I know you think I'm not going to have a work session, but we can have a work session and we can discuss this, because this kind of a thing should be everybody's input, not just one person's input. And for us to sit here and read it, what is the point of that? We're not voting on it. We're not considering it tonight. We need to discuss it at a work session, so I would respectfully ask that you not do that right at this point.
Oh, but I really want to,
I know
because I want
you
the
do, but I'm
public to
saying
know what
would
they're not
respectfully ask
getting
that you
today.
not do it, because we can discuss this at a work session, and I'm not sure what the point is. I mean,
I can tell you what the point is. Work sessions are not usually held with cameras.
not held what?
They're typically not held in front of the cameras. The reason I asked it to be put on the agenda was to get input from all of council, and I recognize that you don't agree with that strategy, but I want in the spirit of transparency, to be transparent about what we had on the agenda that was removed. The public expected this to be covered tonight. It was published on the agenda and it was removed by the majority of council, which under Robert's rules you had the right to do. So I'm asking our parliamentarian if it's okay if I read what was removed from the agenda during old and new business. And
I mean, it's not a parliamentary question. It's old and new business. Unless council says no, it's your, well, I mean, I was going to say it's your 10 minutes. I don't know how many minutes are left of that 10 minutes, but it's your time to use.
I'm sorry, what?
We voted it off the agenda.
right.
Correct.
I'm not asking for a discussion. I was asking to read it into the agenda. So I can just go.
I can't speak, I mean, I can't answer that. I can tell you that, I will say that generally when people say I want to read something into the record, I'm not sure what that, what people think that means. The minutes that come back for the next meeting will not have that written out verbatim.
Right.
So that's, again, it's council's discretion. It's not a parliamentary question.
I've heard it again for the last 5 years.
Well, I'll read it for the people who haven't read it. I'll get going because the clock is ticking. The purpose of it is that council has determined that it's in the best interest of the public, council, and the city of Mason to make available a disclosure process for the purchase or sale of real property involving the city of Mason and/or the transfer of public funds to any nonprofit or for-profit corporation for the purpose of property acquisition. That was an amendment that I made with the law director. Actually, he wrote it. The disclosure process will provide to council staff and the public transparency and information essential to ensure that conflicts of interest are disclosed and that the public is informed when appropriate so that the open and fair discussion of property transactions may be discussed in public before such transactions are completed by the city. The applicable elements of this chapter shall be completed prior to council action on the acquisition or disposition of real property. That last line was an amendment just to clarify timings. So as long as it happens before we vote, the timing is however council best determines it to occur. We deleted the 3/7 clauses, A and C, and part of B from Chapter 125.02. The general requirements read as amended. Such disclosure processes shall include certain disclosures by sellers, buyers, council members, identified city employees and staff, and intended third-party beneficiaries or recipients of funds. That was for the loophole that Member Nelson expressed concern about. And intended third-party beneficiaries or recipients of public funds regarding real property transactions. The related disclosure forms, acknowledgements, verifications, and documents provided for herein shall be used and completed as council considers any real property acquisition, except as otherwise provided for in this chapter. The seller information. When council is considering the purchase or sale of real property by ordinance, the city manager shall request from the owner of a prospective purchase the history of their interest in the real property for the previous 10 years, and that shall include the sales history, MLS or similar history, any agents or trustees representing the owner, any beneficial owners with interest in the property or with a right to receive proceeds from the sales, proof of ownership, original date and purchase price of property, all persons, companies, corporations, entities, trusts, foundations, partnerships, and nonprofit organizations of all types, any shared business interests or pending transactions with council members. So those are just all things, you just jot them down on a piece of paper. If they exist, if they don't, you say they don't exist. I don't know why that's so hard to provide for the public. Chapter 125.04, the buyer or intended third-party beneficiary or recipient information. That's again addressing the loophole. issue that Member Nelson had. The city manager shall request from any prospective buyer of real property from the city or third-party beneficiary or recipient of public funds subject to this chapter information relative to any shared business interests or pending transactions with council members, any shared property interest with council members or staff, other property purchased from the city within 10 years. And then there's an affidavit requested. This is section 125.05. Failure of a prospective seller or prospective buyer or third-party beneficiary to or recipient of public funds to provide a sworn affidavit to the accuracy of the information provided will be disclosed to council and may disqualify the purchase or sale from additional discussion by council. Section 6, disclosure of information. Section A, the city manager or law director shall provide the information as described in this chapter to council and request from each council member and staff member likely to participate in the purchase or sale process that they attest and provide a statement to identify any possible relationships based on the information provided by the sellers or buyers or third-party beneficiary or recipient of public funds related to the subject real property. Failure by a council member to provide the signed statement will amount in them forfeiting their participation in executive session, discussion concerning the property transaction, and voting on the transaction or transfer of public funds to any nonprofit or for-profit corporation for the purpose of property acquisition. We're almost done. When considering the purchase or sale of real property under this chapter, council members shall review the disclosure forms submitted in order to be aware of the nature of any possible conflicts from other participating council members. As part of this review, council members may voluntarily abstain and remove themselves from the discussion due to any concerns with conflict of interest. Council members may recommend, based on disclosures and discussion, that fellow council members should appropriately abstain. Failure to abstain under these circumstances can be publicly disclosed. It can also be noted during any subsequent votes to purchase or sell the property. And if a simple majority vote agrees, such failure to abstain will be considered willful failure to abide by the rules of council per Charter Section 11.04. All disclosures are public record and shall be referenced publicly as part of any final legislation to purchase. The legislative process is Section 125.07. All legislative action related to the sale or purchase of real property shall state the following in the body of the ordinance: the name of the seller or purchaser, parcel or address, purchase price, and material transaction terms. Council by majority vote shall identify a specific, identifiable, and legitimate reason as part of a motion to suspend the rule requiring 2 readings of ordinances in order to allow for the adoption after a single reading. And that's so the public can have discourse with us on these transactions. And Section 8 is disclosure forms. The city manager shall prepare forms to be used for disclosures, acknowledgements, and verifications as described in this chapter. Such completed forms shall be retained pursuant to the city's records retention policy. Section 9 is about exemptions. The requirements of this chapter shall not apply to the acquisition of real property when being acquired by appropriation pursuant to Revised Code Chapter 163, when real property is acquired by easement, dedication, donation, bequest, forfeiture, or right of entry. And lastly, and importantly, Section 10, Chapter 125, Section 10 amendments. Any amendments to this chapter shall require a public hearing and be advertised in the same manner as other public hearings required by these codified ordinances. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to, just for the record, note that Councilmember Grossman did not respectfully honor my request to wait until a work session to do that. Let's go on to item 21, which is recognition of visitors. Anyone else want to come back and say anything? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and your address again for us, please. Thank you. And I'm sorry you had to wait so long.
Lori Shu Trump, 5347 Wheatmore Court. Thank you for a second chance. 3 key points that I heard loud and clear here. Shame on all of you so willingly get to go to litigation over the Gould property. I hear that loud and clear. There were 2 council members here that I feel listened to us, and that was Grossman and Bradburn. And the fact that you dissolved the park committee with the people that supported the Gould property says volumes. And so I feel like tonight, our fight has just begun. I don't feel like that you are honoring the Gould property and what it was, whether it was written in 2003 or whatever, you weren't listening to us. You know, if you want to get the legalities, the Roberts rules, the this, the that, whatever, you can't say this, and this isn't the right place. You didn't hear. You didn't hear us at the plaza, and you didn't hear all of us tonight. And so I don't know what else we can do, but what I did hear is you're willing to fight it and do your own thing between the three of you on the Arts Council. And so we all know your names. Like I said earlier, we vote, and it'll be clear who will be, I'll be talking about on Facebook. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Yes, please come to the podium.
Matt Guzman, 5495 Mason Road, Mason, Ohio. I came here tonight expecting some kind of answers on the Gould property. I learned a lot more. First of all, it's a complete joke. I mean, it was a comedy show, watching some of you up here talk. That's absolutely mind-blowing. And I was never into small politics like this. I just came because I'm directly affected by the Gould property, the Gould issue. And I've learned a lot. And it's mind-blowing. The audacity of some of you. You got council members asking for accountability, and you're blatantly throwing it back in her face. Where is the accountability on this staff? There's 5 of you, and you know who you are, that don't want the accountability, and it shows. It's obvious. It's sick. It says to the rest of us out here, there's definitely something going on, something shady, and you don't want anybody to know about it. The truth will come out. Everybody knows that. It always does. But it's an absolute travesty, what I saw here tonight. And my wife, she didn't want me to get up and say anything, but I wanted my voice to be heard. I think it's a joke, the way you abuse your power. An absolute joke. And y'all should be ashamed of yourselves, really.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks again. My name is Lindy Powell. I'm at 105 Carnell Place. My concern tonight is, for me, there are 2 topics. You have the Gould Park, and then you have the arts. And what concerned me this evening was listening to a couple of you that wanted to table this or just forever. It's what it sounded like. And I'm going to hit on that here in just a second. But that you still are considering the Gould Park to be part of this huge art project. When we had built back on Carnell, it's going to be close to 28, 29 years. About 15 years ago, I had actually spoke with Eric because we had seen some signage that kind of indicated, wow, something is finally going on with the Gould Park. So we're all clapping because it's been on the books for quite a number of years. Since what, 2004? 2003, 2004. I did see the plans of the park. I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was a beautiful park at the time. And I understand maybe wanting to get back with some of the family members and so forth to try to straighten some of the design and so forth out. But I had contacted Eric about 15 years ago and said, hey, are we getting this park? And he had shared with me and explained to me that there wasn't any funds at the time, but that the funds that they did have had to go towards the other parks because they were in need of repair, the tennis courts and so forth like that. And we accepted that, and said, okay, that's fine. But when we start seeing the other parks going in, like the McKenna Park, which is a beautiful park, and I think it's a great park for those that are in need, but all of a sudden, the ones back on Carnell Place understand that some of us, it does affect us. Our backyard connects directly to the field. So whatever you guys decide to put in there, it is going to affect us. Of course, we don't want the big lights and all the noise, and then, you know, Main Street with all the traffic and the whole bit. Of course, we don't want that. But my concern is when all of a sudden we start seeing some of the other parks coming in, and again, nothing on Gould Park. So my concern is, and then my question to the council, is that once we get the decision made to where we're going to keep this as Mrs. Gould had intended and keep it as Gould Park, then how much longer do we have to wait? When will it finally be on the books? You know, I thought I'd seen something in an email that maybe 2023, we were hoping that the council will go ahead and start putting this on the book so we can finally get something in action so we don't have anything like this in the future. And so those are a couple of concerns that we have. And listening to a couple of the council, I am concerned that they are still considering to use Gould Park as this big art project. And again, just please listen to us and listen to what Mrs. Gould had intended. I appreciate that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kim Ward, 5505 Mason Road. I neglected to tell those that are still maybe out here with us tonight to go to SaveGould, G-O-U-L-D, park.com. We have made it clear how we feel. You are not listening. You three that are on the Arts Committee, you're going to put it where you need it. And where you need it is in the downtown mile of Mason. And so this becomes the masterpiece park that you all are going after. We are making it clear that you have a fight on your hands. And I'm hoping that anybody out there agrees with us and will go to this website and see the real truth, because the truth in here tonight was not told right. And there are people, Barbara, who have made comments that this can be fought. This little agreement can be fought, and that's not right. And I know that for a fact. So, I don't trust the three of you at all. I don't think you have our interests at heart. I think you're going to do everything in your power to make that art center there, because it's the only place you can put it that's in this beautiful mile that you want. And it's not right. When people get into a contract, the contract should stand. It shouldn't be our own city fighting us over this. You should have listened and heard and figured out another spot. But you're not listening, and we know that now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to come up to the podium? Okay, going to item, I'm sorry, what?
At the risk of, maybe this is helpful, from my perspective, what I've heard from council, we're not talking about the Arts Center on the Gould Farm. That's not the direction I'm heading. I could be corrected, I could be change course. The deed restriction and some of the confusion and maybe disconnect, whether that's in the community, with the family, with the executor, that is what we have focused on. And with the Averbeck family, excuse me, I've had a frog in my throat, want to make sure that we spend time with them out of an abundance of respect for neighbors, for the legacy of the property, to make sure that we're reconciled on that. And to the one woman's question that I spoke with some years ago, that's probably where we're at now. Before we could do anything on there, I think we want to make sure that we're reconciled on what that deed restriction not the Parks Master Plan, not what some of the other things, that we're aligned with where the family expects on the deed restriction. So again, I could be corrected, I could have my course changed. My focus right now is not on the Arts Center on the Gould property. My focus on making sure whatever the future of the Gould property is, that there's alignment with that deed restriction, with that purchase agreement. I'm not sure if that's helpful. It's not intended to further the conflict. I'm just telling you from a city manager, that's what I'm hearing and that's where I'm heading right now. Well, that's based on what I've heard from council. That's not me in isolation. That is,
You've been
that's
trying to
what I'm
say
hearing.
that.
I'm sorry, I was hoping that was helpful.
Yes, yes.
I would say the problem with that, I get nervous with the microphone, and I'm really loud.
I'm sorry, but you have to use the.
Okay. Julie Larger, 608 West Church. I think the problem with that is anyone that received that letter that was written by the Arts Council, that made it sound very definitively like there was, number one, a study done, and number two, that study had recommended the Gould property as the place to put that park. I mean, I remember talking to neighbors, and they said, well, it sounds like it's a done deal. So I think, and I told this to Ashley, I said, whoever wrote that letter, I'd really like to get him on my team, because I found it kind of deceptive. I mean, they didn't refer to, like, I thought, where's that study that showed that this place was a better place than, say, Corwin-Nixon or behind the high school? So I think that's why people think that the city is looking at that area. That was really clear to me. I mean, that wasn't a wishy-washy letter about that.
I'm not trying to say that the city has not considered that property. That's not true. The city has been considering that property. Certainly, Arts Council has. I'm telling you, at this point in time, given where the dialogue's been, as a city manager, I'm not working on an arts center there. I'm working on making sure with the executor that there is alignment or at least understanding on the deed restriction.
Okay.
But
That's good, but I just wanted to say, when I was listening to you, I thought, well, I can tell you why everyone thinks that. It was clear in that letter where they were headed, the direction the city, I mean, I think it even stated in the letter, after a study was done, the choice property or the choice location was this location at Gould Park. You know, this study has been performed and blah, blah, blah. So, and I even asked, like, who's on this committee? Because there were no names. But, you know, that was, I think that was the direction the city was certainly trying to head in prior to maybe everything being discussed. But that's why. And I hope that you're right. I hope that the family has the ultimate say in what gets done with it.
I am not trying to forget the past or foretell the future. I'm telling you, just
Okay.
myself alone at this point in time, that's the issue that needs some reconciliation. And I didn't want to, I want to be helpful. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You are. I'm just explaining back why we all feel that way. So, okay, thanks.
So based on that information, Mr. Hanson, is there an option to ask for a motion to remove Gould property as an option for the Art Center?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm telling you what I'm working on right now based on what I've heard from council.
So, Mayor, is that an option to ask for the city to remove Gould Park as an option for the Art Center?
I'm sorry, I just need clarification.
Sure.
Whether that's, there's always an option to have that motion while we have council still going.
Correct.
So that's up to council if they want to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
Did we not already table this? So
You tabled 203, whatever that ordinance was, correct?
Well, the ordinance in it did say on section 2 that, where is it? I don't have it in front of me. That section 2 said something to the effect of council would not, right, consider Gould property. I don't want to say it incorrectly.
Section 2 of the ordinance that was tabled says that essentially council no longer supports the development of a regional arts center on the Gould property. So that question was before council and it was tabled under that ordinance.
So then that begs the question, if what Mr. Hanson is saying is correct, why was that tabled?
I am only speaking for Mr. Hanson. I'm not trying to.
I'm not speaking to you currently. I'm speaking to the council members that voted on that issue.
I can tell you, I tabled it because of the reasons I stated, was exactly that I did not want to be,
So then my issue is 203. Let's remove that from this motion and just make it Gould property.
okay,
Off
can
the
I
table for that.
suggest this, just because this is where things get really confusing and really just, we've already tabled it. Nothing's going to happen between now and the next meeting. I promise you, nothing's going to happen. We don't have a.
No, I know that.
Brought before us. So let us consider how we can look at that and bring something that's properly written by our law director, so we don't have problems with this amendment or that motion. I know you want a guarantee from this council, but I want to do it properly. And I think it's better if we give it until the next meeting and figure out what is the best way to do that. We're not trying to pull anything.
So the next meeting is when we'll have some more clarification on this.
That's what I would hope for. I hope Mr. Hanson will have his meeting by then.
Wasn't that what
Family
was
member, I
suggested?
do hope that we.
October 10th? Isn't that what was suggested?
Back and forth. This is 5 minutes for the residents to address council. It's too difficult for staff to keep time
Right.
in this when
So-
it's a dialogue.
That's where we're a little confused, because I hear you saying at the next meeting, but that was what was opposed in the agenda, in the amendment, which was tabled or bounced back, kicked off.
There was
the
a lot
October
more in
10th.
that was opposed.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Again.
is there anyone else who'd like to get up and speak? Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.